The man has been endlessly reborn for 100 years and remembers his first life in which he decided to go to Murim. His goal was to learn basic techniques and the art of wielding a three-edged sword. He wants to learn skills that will help him in future battles. However, his efforts prove to be insufficient. Two huge guys beat him up without much effort. The guy dies at the hands of bandits, but his story does not end there. Fate is preparing new trials for him. Eventually he is reborn, only to die again and be reborn again. This cycle becomes his eternal curse. He retains memories of all his lives. In one of them, he was fortunate enough to be trained by the best masters. It seemed to him that such an opportunity had been bestowed upon him from above. But now he realizes that it is only part of the endless game of reincarnation. He stands at the top of a mountain in deep old age and a yellow butterfly lands on his hand, symbolizing new life, rebirth. He feels tired from the endless rebirths, but realizes he must keep going. The old man sadly realizes that he has been reborn too many times. Now he is the strongest in Murima. He has achieved his goal. Now his life is meaningless. He doesn't understand what's going on. Was it a joke of fate or something serious? The butterfly takes off, dropping yellow particles. The elder dreams of just resting in heaven, and it looks like this time he will finally be able to die. He covers his eyes and prepares to die. He wakes up and looks at his new body with bewilderment. It seems that reincarnation is like a subscription that cannot be refused. Now far from being an old man, the young lad wonders why he has been reborn again. His soul's cry shakes everything around him. He reflects on how things were meant to work out. After living so many lives, one could write an autobiography the thickness of a couple of books. But apparently fate decided that this was not the end. The boy looks at the people around him with bewilderment, listening to his strange words. It seems that not only a new body but also new mysteries await him in this life. Now he was even dizzy. Memories of this man crashed into his head, filling his memory. Someone asks if he's okay. He remembers how the nanny took care of him as if he were a small child. Her hyper-parenting sometimes gave him mixed feelings, but now he realizes that it was a manifestation of her care. The kid sees in the mirror the person he's possessed. The kid's cause of death was suicide. He apologizes to the nurse, explaining that he was just having a nightmare. His tone sounds more like an attempt to reassure not only her, but also himself. The nanny assumes that his condition is related to recent events. A few days of unconsciousness has clearly not gone unnoticed. He just needs to rest now. He and his brother ask the main character, does he need something? He answers that he needs to figure out how to live in this body now. The nanny asks in surprise what he is talking about. The question sounds as if his words have raised more questions than answers. He tries to convince everyone that he's not crazy. With a slight irony, he wonders if he looks like a madman. The guy asks to bring him food in an hour, assuring him that nothing strange will happen. He thinks that he is obviously a fool since he started talking nonsense right away. The nanny agrees and promises to cook his favorite dish. Her care, as always, manifests itself in the little things, which he now begins to appreciate more. She hopes that he really just wants to rest. Her words sound reassuring, as if she's trying to convince not only him but herself that everything will be all right. He stares at the ceiling, realizing that it doesn't end here. His thoughts are full of foreboding, as if a new storm is brewing somewhere on the horizon. Memories of bygone days flash through his mind. Pictures of the past mingle with the present, creating a complex pattern of emotions and reflections. As his thoughts and the kid's thoughts intertwine with each other, he tries to make some sense of them. A new life adds to the confusion. The previous owner of this body was Suk Jin-ho. He was a man who was neither strong nor intelligent, but he left a lot of questions behind. After returning home, he had to face a bunch of people who despised him, pointing fingers at him, judging him. Suk Jin-ho fell into a deep pessimism, refusing to eat and avoiding people. He seemed to be slowly approaching this, as if resigning himself to the inevitable. At that moment, the protagonist got into his body. Jin decided to end his life in the prime of life. Internal conflicts were the cause. There were people around him who valued his life more than their own. They cared even in small things, like worrying that he was dressed too lightly for this cold weather. He wonders why he should dress warmer. He feels that he is perceived as an old man even though he feels quite alert. Someone offers to walk him out, but he refuses. The question of why he came back so late sounds more like a show of concern than a reproach. He didn't notice how the time flew by. His thoughts were so busy that he didn't even pay attention to his surroundings. He is asked to sit down as the food is ready. He asks ironically if he is considered a child, but only hears a joking remark that he will be able to complain when he recovers. Given his past experience, the same thought pops into his mind. Perhaps this is not a grace bestowed upon him at all. The boy reflects on what he might have missed in his past lives. Although he has seen a lot of things, he still can't understand why he made the choices he did. He feels ashamed because he's not who he thinks he is. He wonders what the real owner of this body wanted to achieve before he died. He thinks of the owner of this body with a slight irony. Though weak, he was able to get his message across. Now all that remains is to decide what to do about it. He promises to fulfill the request and prove himself worthy. For him, who once conquered Murmia, it won't be too difficult. He is sure he will make others regret what they have done. Those who stood in his way will recognize their mistakes. Their realization will come late, but better late than never. The boy wants to show his truth. His intentions seem sincere, but the people around him are in no hurry to trust him. To fulfill his desire, he decides to start training. The boy realizes that nothing can be achieved without effort. The more wealth he gets his hands on, the more strength is required to protect it. The first martial art he decides to learn is Taijikwan Heavenly Dance. This method is great for improving fitness and building muscle. Thanks to it, he will be able to master the vision necessary to achieve the goal. Changes in natural musculature are a painful process, but you can't do without it. He realizes that it is a necessary step on the road to success. Although he was prepared for the pain, the guy feels that this pain is just unbearable. Now he is ready to move forward, leaving the past behind. He has to hold on a little longer, but he's almost at the end of his strength. His veins were popping all over the place and sweat was dripping off him. He begins to meditate. Although the results are not yet impressive, he is already managing to accumulate energy. This is the first step towards something more. The nurse is worried when she sees the gentleman in the cold. She asks him if he is ill, but he only waves her off, saying that he is fine. He looks at her with slight irony, asking if he looks like he's sick. It sounds more like a joke than a serious statement. The nurse warns him that if he overdo it, he might go blind again. Her words sound like concern, but he clearly has no intention of stopping. He explains that he can't just sit back. In order to protect the nanny, he needs to become stronger. His determination is clear. The nanny tries to convince him that she can protect him herself. She insists that he take care of his health, but he only smiles, saying that he has important things to do. She is surprised, knowing that the master has only dated her and Yoon. Nanny seriously ponders his words. He decides to meet Yoon and teach him what he knows himself. His intentions seem noble, but something in his gaze hints at ulterior motives. The nanny promises to support him in spite of all the difficulties. Her words sound sincere, as if she would do anything for his well-being. The protagonist sees a guy practicing by punching his fists through the air. His battle cry shakes the neighborhood. He notices that the young man has the perfect physique to study the heavenly iron fist. His eyes do not deceive him. The boy clearly has potential. The guy stops his workout, saying that's enough for today. Yoon asks in surprise if he's gotten a little stronger. He waits for confirmation of his efforts. The protagonist ponders that mastering this martial art will take a long time. However, he is confident that Yoon will learn quickly. If he masters this art, he will be able to resist even powerful opponents. The young man thanks him for the chance and promises to become a strong warrior to help him. His words sound sincere, as if he is ready to devote himself to it. The protagonist looks at the young man with warmth, calling him almost a sibling. Their bond grows stronger and stronger despite the difference in experience. Yoon hugs the boyfriend tightly and doesn't let go. The protagonist remarks that the young man should have been less emotional. The babysitter offers refreshing water, but the protagonist is distracted by someone yelling about not moving certain things. People are shouting that the gentleman will have guests coming tomorrow. The protagonist asks in surprise what is the matter, but she only reminds him of the upcoming feast. He remembers that tomorrow is the clan head's party. The nanny worries if he's all right, but he assures her he's fine. The nanny reminds him that he is to meet his enemies. She worries about how he will communicate with them. The protagonist only smiles, saying that he wouldn't worry if he were her. He advises the nanny to be more concerned about them. The nanny asks in surprise, but the protagonist only nods, confirming his words. The young man notices that the protagonist has changed since they met. He admires his bravery and decides that he will not fall behind. The nanny reassures him by telling him that she has already prepared a present. Her words sound reassuring, as if she wants to relieve him of his worries. She reflects on the fact that you don't have to buy rice with money. Even the clothes he wears are made by the nanny herself. Her skills continue to amaze him. He looks at those around him with warmth. These people love him so much, even though they are essentially strangers. This thought gives him mixed feelings. He decides to go to a place where he can meet famous personalities from all over the world. Perhaps if he shows himself at his best, he can become an apprentice to one of them. The boy sees no need to seek apprenticeship from the old men. His confidence sounds like a challenge, but at the same time is a recognition of his own strength. He recognizes that he has changed because of the people who believed in him. His words are resounding with gratitude and his eyes are fixed on a future of even greater change. Guy decides that today he will take the first step toward that change. His determination is evident, as if he is ready to challenge everything that stands in his way. He admits that he cannot yet say exactly what the future holds for them. His question as to whether they are ready to stay by his side sounds with a slight note of doubt. But they answer him without hesitation, confirming their loyalty. They assure him that they will always follow him. Their words sound like a pledge of allegiance, and he seems to accept it gratefully. Now they are all packed up and set off on a long journey, not even knowing what awaits them next on a difficult and interesting path. People are surprised to notice that the young master, who used to rarely leave the house, has changed his behavior. Chun-suk said that his behaviors have become different. Someone comes up and says that people around him are discussing whether it's true that he's changed, and asks if it's true. He sees a man in a white kimono, and after searching his memory he realizes that it must be his brother, Suk Manhwa. Manhwa reminds him that it's the clan head's birthday, so he can't miss our hero. His words sound slightly ironic, as if he's trying to justify his presence. He calls his interlocutor a regular student, even though he's only a month younger. But his brother has a higher rank, so he's cooler. Manhwa reflects on the fact that at his age, to reach such a position is already a good fortune. He talks about having a future, unlike his interlocutor. The guy offers to compete, joking that the weather is nice today for such an endeavor. He jokes that there are no witnesses being at the party. He assures me that he will fulfill his promise soon, perhaps even tomorrow. His words sound confident, as if he can already see it happening. He offers to test his strength, but warns him not to underestimate him. His rival, though he has no outstanding abilities, has a good reputation in Shijiazhong. The guy adds that he has to return the favor. His words sound like a promise that he intends to fulfill no matter what. Yoon notices that it seems like the people around him are a little too much. His tone sounds slightly ironic. He doesn't take it seriously. He sees that the 5 colors of mind can be seen on the flags of the central and western countries. Observes the elders of Cheonan and Hwasan. Yoon explains that these families are very wealthy and far away from these lands. This means they respect the head of the clan. Many guests had arrived, a whole crowd piled in front of the main entrance, so they would have time for a long chat. The guy reflects that it can't be helped and asks if he should socialize with people more. His interlocutor denies it, but adds that they need to face the truth. Now they have time for a walk. He notices that it's funny to watch Suk Manhwa twirl around people. It seems to be the only thing he knows how to do. The elders look at him, noticing that there is nothing to see there, just skin and bones. Their words are spoken with a slight sneer. They apologize for their rudeness and ask the young man what clan he is from. Their tone sounds restrained, as if they are trying to make up for their mistake. He introduces himself as Suk Jin-ho, Mr. Suk's 4th son. The man states that he sees no point in answering any other questions. But the interlocutor adds that he doesn't even know who they are. He agrees that there's no need to rush, but adds that he knows them. According to him, they are elders of the Jeongnam and Hwasan clans. He offers help through the servants, but those around him wonder how dare he speak to the elders like that. Their reaction sounds like a mixture of shock and displeasure. He makes an offer to go to Hwasan. He offers to make him the best warrior or master of Murim. Another elder offers to join Cheonan, but he refuses, citing his reclusive lifestyle. His words come with a touch of irony. Hwasan continues to bend his line and says he'll teach him their art, but our guy interrupts them and says he's already practicing. He notices that the young people in their time don't listen to adults at all. His words sound like mild irritation. Jin-ho adds that he has to go to his grandfather's house. The elder tells him to wait and tries to grab his sleeve. The wind swirls around the boy and the elder's hand doesn't touch him. He's surprised that the person he's talking to has turned away. Perhaps he was just lucky. His tone sounds slightly doubtful. He agrees with the assumption that it's just luck or talent. However, he adds that he didn't expect to meet such a boy here. Yoon asks if everything will be okay, considering these are elders of powerful clans. His interlocutor waves them off, saying he doesn't owe them anything. He meets his uncle and explains that he is waiting his turn. He is asked if he is a guest or a stranger and asked to follow him out of line. He wonders if it's okay to do this, but receives confirmation. His gratitude sounds sincere, though he remembers how recently he was ignored. His conversation with the elders clearly interested his uncle. The boy jokes that he wasn't even shy about talking to them. The servant confirms that he understands his master. His words sound respectful and ready to follow instructions. The clan head notices that everyone is pretending to be silent out of fear or just peeking. Sukmyung and Sukjin-ho want to meet him. Uncle greets the gentleman and says he's with Jin-ho. Jin's birthday greetings sound warm, and the mention of Yoon and the nanny adds a note of concern. He offers a modest gift, adding that usually everyone brags about their accomplishments. His words are spoken with the sincerity that he believes is most valuable. The head notices that the elders of the Jongnam and Hwasun clans have taken an interest in Jin. His tone sounds mildly surprised. He asks which of the two clans he wants to choose, but gets the answer that the interlocutor is not interested in either of them. The boy reiterates that he wants to continue studying the martial art he has already started. The father laughs and says that his son is not hopeless and has big plans. He offers to start his life from scratch, asking if he needs help. However, the guy assures that he can manage on his own. They say their goodbyes, and the clan leader sits and ponders how Hwasun and the Chonam showed interest in him, what on earth he did. He notices that the interlocutor spoke to him with confidence. Too much change in a short period of time, it seems to him. He decides it's worth it to follow up on his interlocutor and orders someone to enter his chambers. The head tells his servant, who is on his knee, to follow the boy. The servant listens to his master. He notices that there is clearly something about Sukjin-ho. He realizes that he needs more information about him and his affairs. The guy notices that one of the challenges has gone well. He walks relaxed and puts his hands on his head from behind. Yoon warns him not to say such things out loud in case someone hears. But the person he's talking to waves him away, saying there's nothing to worry about. Suddenly a man stands in front of him. He asks who he is and expresses his displeasure that he is blocking his way. Fatty was going to talk to the guy nicely, but he seems to be just looking for an excuse to fight. This fat guy is a member of the E. Yoon offers to call someone for help but is rebuffed. His tone sounds concerned, but he respects his interlocutor's decision. The boy assumes that his interlocutor is just jealous of him since the elders didn't approach him. His words sound with a slight sneer. Jin notices that the person he is talking to is good for nothing and even falls for his provocation. He goes around him and the fat man falls down. He wonders what happened, and our guy asks if the person he's talking to is embarrassed, since he just started training and has already won. He is amazed at the ease with which the fat man pounced on him with his fists. His tone is one of mild surprise and bewilderment. The underdog yells that he's done playing the hero. He reaches into his belt and tries to pull out his katana. The guy explains that for his part it's just self-defense. His movements are fast and precise, which commands respect even from his opponent. The master looks at him with a slight sneer, asking if he really thinks he's so smart. His smile suggests that he sees all the moves ahead of him. The opponent notices he's dodging again, but the guy says it's no big deal. Even an idiot could do the same thing. He feels that he has been humiliated in front of everyone. His face is a mixture of anger and shame, but he is not going to give up. The Lord bares his blade, and the people around him panic, screaming for him to be stopped. Someone calls for the guards, but he seems to pay no attention. The guy knocks the sword out of his hands and asks what he's looking at. This is followed by a hard punch right in the face. The fat man flies aside from the force of the blow, and our hero grabs the sword that his opponent had just used to cut Jin down with. He had heard that the guy from the Suk family had only recently started training. Rumors of his success had already spread, causing many people to be surprised. The guards come out and ask what happened and if the gentleman is all right. He confirms that he is perfectly fine. The guard decides to go directly to E's family, adding that they will still pay for their actions. But the master says he wants to end it himself. To be glad he didn't bear his sword, otherwise today could have been the last day for his opponent. Sukjin-ho offers to teach a lesson, but the interlocutor quickly apologizes on pain of death, admitting his guilt. He throws the katana down, leaving everything to the guards, not wanting to interfere further. The indifference in his tone suggests that he's already lost interest in what's happening. The guard assures them that everything will be done properly and asks them not to worry. They catch the cut tail in their hands. The smoothness of the master's movements during battle seemed almost unreal to everyone, drawing admiration from observers. Some girl notices that the guy has really changed a lot. The changes in his behavior and manners became noticeable to everyone around him. Mistress looks at what is happening with interest. The situation is getting more and more exciting, and he can't take his eyes off her. She decides it's better to grab him right now. It may be a risk, but it's better to act than to stand by and wait for him to side with his brothers. The girl orders to find out everything about the guy, including the smallest details. She thinks it would be better if her brother stayed at home. Madam says that only she, Sukmi Ryong, can win. Our guy becomes an important weapon in the war within the clan. Some man approaches Yoon with a request for help. Although the request is small, he can't accept what he is offered. Yoon reminds him that he doesn't have the same power as others. No one dares to contradict him, for he and the master are like brothers. The man had heard that the boy had gotten stronger after training with the Lord. Besides, the rumors of the servant's rescue added to his respect among the people around him. He says that he has been studying Sanj martial arts for 5 years, but has not yet accomplished anything. If the master refuses to take him on, he will back out because this is his last chance. Yoon agrees to try to talk to the Lord, but immediately warns him not to get his hopes up too high. The gentleman's character is known to everyone, and he rarely changes his mind. The master orders Yoon to kick out anyone who interferes with the training. His command sounds harsh, but there is a sense of concern for discipline. He asks what the man is doing here. His voice is slightly perplexed, but he doesn't hurry to throw him out, giving him a chance to explain himself. Mariyoung tells him that he's been friends with Yoon since they were kids. The master remarks that since Yoon didn't kick him out, they are really close. He asks if he came to learn. The boy honestly admits that he sees no point in starting at the bottom. The gentleman respects his straightforwardness. He questions why he should be accepted. The man assures him that he will be useful, and his eyes are full of persistence and determination. He explains that in order for Yoon to spend more time practicing, he needs someone to take over some of his responsibilities. His face lights up with hope like a puppy seeing a treat. The gentleman asks if his name is really Jong Ma-ryung. The guy confirms, but the gentleman adds that he has no talent at all. The man admits that he has no talent for martial arts. Despite this, he doesn't give up, as if he knows that perseverance is more important than natural ability. His main goal in life is to become independent. He wants to do what he wants, like the aeration craftsmen who are respected by everyone. However, he realizes that a bare fist can kill as well as save. He is well aware that he could die at any moment. Life, in his opinion, is given for the purpose of defying it. Old memories come flooding back, and the master decides to keep him on probation. He's surprised to be left behind, but the master warns him not to think he's too kind. Ma-ryung dutifully agrees, realizing that this is a chance not to be missed. The man thanks the gentleman for the chance. He is allowed to stay in the backyard, but forbidden to enter the house. The guy assures that the gentleman will not regret his decision. Yoon notices that the man is just lucky that the master ended up here. However, it was the guy who gave him a chance first, and that can't be ignored. The gentleman has guests coming to see him. Their visit causes a slight tension, but he does not show it, remaining calm. A guest asks to be escorted to the master's office to deliver a letter from Mrs. Suk-mi-ryung. When asked if something is wrong, he dryly replies that he's not here to answer questions. The gentleman irritably asks why everyone decided to ruin his mood today. Yoon tries to calm him down, but the guest apologizes for the lack of warning. He asks if he heard correctly that the problem was the delivery of the letter from Mrs. Suk-mi-ryung. He adds sarcastically that he didn't know there was a dog living in the manor. He is warned that the dog bites. The gentleman jokes that you can't scare rabid dogs, eliciting mixed reactions from those around him. The guest notices that someone is getting a little too cocky after his newly acquired fame. His words sound like a warning, but with a slight sneer. He decides to teach a lesson on behalf of his mistress. He acts so quickly that the interlocutor does not even have time to react, but our protagonist quickly dodges at the last moment, leaving his guest to receive a slap from him in surprise. He flies away from his hard blow. The master says he is sorry, for the guest will have to suffer some more. He keeps hitting right on the points where the blood circulates. Guest realizes that this is a big problem for him. He's aiming straight at them, as if ready to deliver the final blow. There is a determination in his movements that leaves no doubt that he is serious. The guy offers him a taste of his fist. His actions are so abrupt that the people around him don't even have time to realize what is happening. He notices that weaklings are very fond of flapping their tongues. He throws a handkerchief to the victim to wipe his wounds. He resents that someone dares to behave like this in his house. The headache caused by this idiot prevents him from even reading the letter. He decides that now they will have to take care of the situation themselves. His tone sounds coldly determined, as if he has already drawn up a plan of action. Someone has been informed of everything that has happened. His words sound formal, but there's an undercurrent of tension in them. He explains that he reacted sharply to show that those who feel it is their duty to humiliate him will have a response. Now they will know that he will not just let it go. He adds that if it wasn't for his actions, he wouldn't be here. Only 2 people would have attended his funeral, and that makes him act decisively. The boy wondered since when he had become her property. His tone sounded slightly resentful, but she reminded him that she was his older sister. He asked her what she wanted, for it was unlikely that he had been called here for nothing. She decided to get straight to the point by asking for help. Suk-mi-ryung stated that she wanted him to help her become the head of the Suk clan. He refused, and she wondered if he had already accepted his brother's offer. He explained that he had taken no side and had no interest in the case. She asked him if he was going to go to Gango and promised to help him achieve whatever he wanted if the power was in her hands. She promised that under his rule, the clan would become something he had never dreamed of. Her words sounded like an attempt to convince him of the right choice. Madame added that it would benefit not only the clan, but also himself. Her tone sounded convincing, as if she were trying to find a weakness in his arguments. He replied that he didn't think it was right. Her surprise was visible, as if she hadn't expected such an answer. Sukmi Ryung thought for a moment perhaps she was right. Once he excelled in martial arts, the attention of the Hwasan and Jeongnam clans had attracted him. His victory over Hu Ji-soo, an experienced fighter, already spoke volumes. He had demonstrated his potential, and she had no reason to doubt his words. The boy said that Mistress could do it without his help. She asked to just call her sister, reminding him that they were not strangers. Her request to spend more time together sounded warm and hopeful. Sukmi Ryung admitted that she felt more comfortable with him. Her hope for them to become closer sounded sincere, but she added that she wasn't the type to give up quickly. The clan head wondered how this youngster could defeat an experienced warrior. The Lord noticed that he was very agile during the fight, which was a source of respect. He was third in rank, which spoke of his strength. During the battle, he was able to defeat his opponent by aiming at the points where blood flowed. It wasn't just luck, but skill. The servant apologized for not being able to meet him, but explained that he had left the manor early in the morning alone. The question arose as to whether he had been injured during the fight. He noticed that the mountain was still the same, and that helped him not get lost. His surprised look said that he hadn't expected to see something familiar. The gentleman was surprised to see the strange object. His question as to what it was sounded with slight perplexity. He realized that it was definitely some kind of weapon. His tone sounded slightly ironic, as if he hadn't expected to find something like that. He saw two figures, the figure of a girl who was pinned against a tree with nowhere to go, and a red-skinned devil who was ready to attack. Noting that he was just looking for a way to amuse himself, his suggestion sounded slightly ironic, like he was already looking forward to the fun. The gentleman intervened and stood between them. Then, with a smirk, he suggested to his interlocutor that they have some fun together. His tone sounded like a challenge, but with a touch of humor. The red-skinned man asked sharply who it was. His tone sounded annoyed, but the boy added that it didn't matter who exactly he was. The gentleman emphasized that the only thing that mattered was that he had dared to attack a woman in broad daylight. His words sounded like an accusation, and those around him called the attacker a scoundrel and a demon of lust. The boy noted with regret that there was more to see in Gango than that. The girl next to him shouted for our hero to be more careful. The warning to be careful sounded anxiously, but his interlocutor only laughed, calling him an idiot for his loss of vigilance, asking if that really counted as a surprise attack. His tone sounded sarcastic, as if he didn't take the threat seriously. Hell wondered how the man was able to do that. His words sounded with a slight shock, for he had expected his opponent to stand as a target. The Lord stood in place and said that this is what an attack should look like. At that moment he threw a stone and kicked it at the devil. The red-skinned man said that he had brought this on himself, and now he was finished. His tone sounded coldly determined, leaving no doubt that his intentions were serious. He promised to finish him off with a single blow. His words sounded like a challenge, but they were confident. The Lord asked with a chuckle if the man was really so confident in his predictable attacks. The question sounded like a challenge, but with a slight sneer. Jean said he wasn't used to fighting people who were only proud of themselves. His words sounded contemptuous. He explained that he didn't kill the enemy, but simply blocked the acupuncture points. Apparently, it was enough to ensure safety. She thanked him, but he brushed it off, saying it was nothing. His modesty sounded sincere. The lady's uncle asked in surprise what had happened here. Her voice sounded anxious, as if he couldn't believe what was happening. He apologized, saying it was his fault, for he should have taken better care of her. She countered that it was her own fault, having run away thoughtlessly. The boy marveled that she had reached Gango alone. Her uncle asked what had happened, noticing that she was not wearing her face. She explained that she had inhaled poison. He promised to try to cleanse her of the toxin by asking her to concentrate her chi energy. He asked if she was feeling better. She happily replied that she was and thanked him. His face lit up with a smile, as if he was genuinely happy for her. The uncle apologized, saying he wasn't himself and forgot to say thank you. He said his name was Baek Sangon, and his girlfriend's name was Bang Na Young. He suggested that we put the introductions on hold and get on with that guy. There was a slight irritation in his voice, as if he were tired of always meddling in other people's business. He mentioned that the man called himself a lust demon. His surprise was evident, as if he hadn't expected to hear such a strange nickname. Demons usually have powerful abilities that can crush even experienced warriors. However, the guy who helped her was able to defeat him with just one blow. She saw it with her own eyes and marveled at his agility. The uncle asked politely who he was. His question sounded mildly curious. He was trying to figure out who he was dealing with. Mistress was surprised that he left without even giving his name. Her expression said that she was a little puzzled by this behavior. Her uncle promised that he would be sure to describe him for her. There was no doubt about it. There were few warriors of that level here. She agreed, comparing his strength to that of a dragon. He reminded them that the Pang family was not in debt. His words sounded formal, but they were respectful of tradition. The guy stated confidently that it was definitely around here somewhere. Everything looked the same as before, as if time had stopped here. He was relieved that his memory had not failed him. His tone sounded slightly proud, as if he were pleased with his attentiveness. The master asked in surprise if it was really the cat's thing. Her stubbornness gave him mixed feelings, but he didn't insist. He asked politely for permission to use a bit of power. His question sounded with a slight irony, as if he already knew the answer. He wondered if the cat was scared when it saw the man's inner strength. His offer to feed it sounded slightly mocking, but there was a sense of concern in it. The guy asked if she liked it. Her silent answer indicated that she was too busy to answer. He wondered what 60-year-old ginseng tasted like to her. His question sounded slightly ironic, as if he already knew the answer. The boy noted with satisfaction that he hadn't made a mistake with his choice. The energy began to fill his body, and he felt a surge of strength. The Lord decided to slowly absorb the energy and channel it through his body. It was an important process for the 100-year-old energy to combine his power with the energy of the great battle. He thanked her for guarding him all this time. Her care gave him warm feelings, and he called her a friend. The boy promised that if they met again, he would be sure to repay her. But suddenly he realized that the cat wanted to go with him. He agreed to her suggestion, though not without doubts. His tone was slightly ironic, as if he didn't fully believe it would succeed. He decided to name her Churnish. His idea sounded a little humorous, but there was sincere affection in it. The Lord says that the territory is now under the protection of the cat. There is no telling how long he will remain on the estate, but for now there is nothing to worry about. The minions expressed their displeasure that he had left without leaving a note or even a warning. Their concern was obvious, but he only smiled in response. He noticed that they were fine. He also asked Auntie how she was feeling and how the rest of the team was feeling. The master noted with satisfaction that he had done everything he had planned. The sudden appearance of the kitty cat caused them surprise, but they quickly came to their senses. The boy named the cat Churnish, deciding that he would live with them from that day on. The thought of such a small furball becoming a subordinate made him laugh. He asked why Blackie looked so dangerous. It turned out that the kitty had eaten enough ginseng, and now his body had accumulated great strength. Mariung was surprised that the kitty had turned out to be so strong. Even he wasn't recognized, and he was still on probation. His thoughtfulness didn't escape the people around him. He got a little excited when he saw them. The boy asked how the training was going and praised them for their hard work. His words sounded a little proud. He was happy about their success. The man nodded obediently, confirming the order. Mariung is practicing hard, pounding the air with his fists like Yoon used to do. A kitty cat nearby yawns and meows. He raised an eyebrow, wondering if the cat had time for nonsense. He tilted his head slightly, asking if the cat considered himself superior to him. The master laughed when he heard the rebuke. He winked jokingly and asked if he had quarreled with the cat or if the cat had offended him. Mariung noticed the cat's eyes glistening and told the Lord that it wasn't an ordinary cat. He was skeptical of this statement. He sees Black is stretched out on the windowsill. The only one who's being abused here is Ryan. The cat slaps him on the back. The Lord thought about it and decided it was better not to make him angry, remembering his pranks. Black is suddenly jumped up to the shelf and started poking at it with his paw. He seemed to be trying to point out something important, but his efforts looked comical. A sudden sound made him wince. The cat fell on its feet, which surprised the man. He didn't know that cats could do that. Blackie was curled up on the windowsill, but there was a sense of something more in the air. The master confirmed that it was a spirit cat. The silence was broken by footsteps outside the door. There was a whisper that guests had arrived. The master was already looking toward the new people. The door swung open and a servant entered the room, bowing his head respectfully. He announced that the clan leader was expecting a meeting. The head of the clan sat in his chair, fingers drumming nervously on the armrest. The cold remark about fugitives who gave no warning of their departure came with a faint shadow of a smile. His shoulders tensed, but his voice remained calm. The thought that truth cuts and lies kill flashed through his mind as the formal words were spoken. The window flew open, letting in the wind. The curtains danced, as if trying to escape the room. The wind whispered that the house was not a cage, but the walls were silent. The shadow of the lamp trembled on the wall, repeating an old argument. Echoes of the past reminded him that daughters fly away and sons stay. The parting was not easy. The thought of leaving the house was doubtful, but the decision had already been made. The question of whether there was another reason for his departure hung in the air. The answer sounded dry, but with a slight note of regret. The words that no one would believe the old excuses anymore were said with irony. Obviously, much about the escape has already been revealed. The plan to escape from the manor appeared to be long in the making. The events of the last few days had only strengthened his resolve. The question, asked with a serious expression on his face, demanded an honest answer. There was a tense silence in the room. The idea of doing something after leaving caused a skeptical smile. Doubts that everything would be easy sounded in every word. The offer to raise a dragon elicited only an indifferent look. The answer was brief, but it was for the brothers to do. The Buddha's legacy flowing in the blood was mentioned with respect. The answer that it was only half-heartedly mentioned with slight bitterness. The request to stay at least until his birthday sounded warm. Memories of walks with my grandfather added a touch of nostalgia. The request sounded hopeful, but the answer was brief. There was silence in the room as if waiting for further words. The conversation turned to the fact that there was something unusual about him. The question of opinion elicited a thoughtful look, but the answer was simple: he had changed a lot. Doubts that it was possible to change anything in such a short period of time were clearly audible. Pity for the situation was mixed with regret for lost potential. The explanation for the delay sounded with a slight smile. The visit to Mrs. Sukmi Ryong added a touch of warmth to the story. Chernish suddenly appeared, distracting my attention from the monologue. His help was invaluable, and his appetite was truly beastly. The order was obeyed without further ado. The desire to spend time in tranquility sounded like a hint of fatigue. Suk Manor finally came into view. His gut feeling told him that this place was enough to hide from all his problems, at least for a while. The manor looked lived in, as if someone had actually lived here. There was a sense of presence in the air, though no one was visible. The question as to whether they could come in sounded slightly nervous. The guests hurriedly calmed down, explaining that they just wanted to express their gratitude. Introducing themselves as Baek Sang-gong from the Pung family, they asked to report their visit to Mr. Suk Jin-ho. The meeting with the man in beige was surprising. They hadn't seen each other for a long time, and the question about the reason for the visit sounded with a slight wariness. The guests politely explained that they wanted to meet Suk Jin-ho. Their request was reflected negatively on the face of the person they were talking to. They expressed their desire to thank the gentleman personally and asked to be escorted out. The question sounded hopeful but not intrusive. The boy nodded and motioned for me to follow him. His movements were calm, as if he was used to such visits. The thought of how they had managed to meet him in the first place was perplexing. Questions swirled in his head, but there were no answers yet. The guests greeted on behalf of the Pung family, explaining that they had come to personally thank them for the recent incident. The invitation to come inside sounded warm, even though the house was clearly not a palace. The guests thanked the young gentleman for accompanying them, but confidently declared that they could manage on their own. The question as to whether he should come with them remained unanswered. He offered to send someone later to escort the guests to their rooms. He asked his henchwoman to keep an eye on them. She raised her eyebrows in surprise upon hearing the question. Her answer sounded slightly ironic. She hadn't expected such a suggestion. The thought that friendship with them would ensure a place in the sun brought a slight smile. The plan seemed clear, but there was a certain amount of risk involved. They wanted to keep the meeting private, but the situation had gotten out of hand. The question of whether they had missed something important was in the air. He reassured that everything was fine and added that Suk Jin Ryong was just surprised. The girl's uncle is shocked that the master doesn't notice her. Suk Jin Ryong noticed her immediately, but his attention shifted to the strange object lying on the table. She held out a small gift, explaining that it was a plaque of their family. Her words about the privileges it would unlock sounded proud. He looked surprised at the gift and at the way she'd called it small. The question of what she considered big hung in the air. She held the gift in her hands insistently, as if she wasn't going to back down until he accepted it. He accepted her gifts, and Mistress was overjoyed. The guy says that he is the one who should have been thanked in this situation. The money was stacked neatly in the wallet. Each coin jingled, reminding them of their impending escape from the Empire. The plan seemed risky but necessary. She looked around the room, checking to see if the guests were comfortable enough. Her gaze slid to the soft cushions and the lit candles. The pause lingered, as if waiting for her to add something important. Her fingers skimmed the edge of the scroll, but no words came out. She wondered if it was that noticeable. Her fingers clenched the edge of her dress and her lips trembled, trying to hide her embarrassment. The challenge sounded unexpected. His eyebrows rose in surprise, but there was only a brief nod in response. The sword was already in his hand, ready to be drawn. She drew her sword, preparing to begin. The young lord nodded, accepting the challenge. Their shadows froze on the floor, reflecting the tense silence. Mistress has attacked him sharply with her interesting weapons. She promises to give it her all in this fight. With a swipe of her scythe, she caused shockwaves of blue color. Our protagonist quickly and easily began to dodge them. She stopped abruptly, looking around. Not a single attack had reached its target, and it was mildly irritating. Her fingers clenched the hilt of her sword, preparing for the next strike. His legs spread slightly, his body tensed like a spring ready to fire. He didn't even use his full strength, but the blow was accurate. His reactions were quick, his movements polished, as if he'd been practicing for years. It felt as if he had anticipated every move. Every step, every swing of his sword, everything seemed part of his plan. But Mistress was able to dodge and prepare to strike him from above with her scythe. This blow could be the last and decisive one. At this distance, the advantage was on her side. The attack was going to be irresistible and he wouldn't be able to avoid it. But he thrusts his katana into the ground on the run, pushes off and strikes with all his might, knocking the scythe out of her hands. Her scythe now in the lord's hand. He caught it and put it to the lord's throat, but not to kill, but to end the fight with his superiority. The boy smiled modestly, recognizing that he didn't have much experience. His gaze slid around the training room as if looking for clues. He noted good technique and fast attacks, but added that the movements were too predictable. The question about unexpected attacks was raised with a slight hesitation. Mistress suggested we fight again tomorrow, and he agreed. Her eyes flashed with excitement as if she was already imagining how she would improve her skills. She and her uncle exchanged glances about the training. Her amazement at his abilities was evident, especially after he had matched 6 dragons. He wonders if this girl likes him that much. But he realizes that it's obvious from her eyes and smile speak for her. She wondered if he really wanted to see his limits. After a pause, he nodded as if deciding it was worth the effort. She offered to get to know him better when she had the chance. The thought of thanking him for his help elicited an approving nod. Suk Myung-il was surprised to see how much Jin-ho had changed. His eyes lit up with interest, as if she wanted to know more. The guy who could barely speak not long ago was now so confident that he rejected the offer of elders Wasand and Chancham. The head could barely contain his laughter after learning that the quiet man turned out to be a hidden dragon. The rumors that Lady Im Ryong had rejected Prince Jin Ryong only fueled his curiosity. The man stubbornly stood his ground as if his opinion were the law of the universe. The older mentor only sighed at the stubborn student. The head frowned, contemplating his next move. Perhaps interfering now would cause more trouble than good. Myung-il decided to personally talk to Jin-ho despite his young age. The guy seemed smarter than expected, but it was not an easy task to realize what he had planned. The Tung clan, located on the outskirts, was famous for their strategists. Their intelligence could have turned the game upside down if not for the eternal strife between the families. It seems that Prince Jin Ryong has been neglected by the clans. Mr. Peng dreamed of obtaining the Jade Leaf, an artifact that could change the balance of power. Jin-ho coldly asked to pass the message to Renhu. The young man clearly wasn't going to tolerate nonsense even if it ruined the relationship between the clans. Meeting Jin-ho and the cute, beautiful, and fluffy kitty after a long separation caused mixed feelings. Uncle Val appeared unexpectedly, as always. His visits rarely boded well, but it was impossible to refuse the elder. The rumors about changes in Jin-ho turned out to be true. The young man firmly stated that he would continue to improve as his childhood years were behind him. The boy reminded with a smile that he was only 17. However, he already felt like an adult, although those around him seemed not to notice his change. The young man asked ironically if they had heard of Galba Sokka's methods of growing up. His tone hinted that such methods were unlikely to work for everyone. Jin-ho sincerely thanked his uncle for his help. He was one of the heads of the Suk clan, being the illegitimate son of the clan head. He was the only one who understood Suk Jin-ho. The guy never ignored him and always remained a loyal friend. After the meeting with the Kata clan, Uncle often visited Jin-ho and spent time with him. The promise made in those days was still weighing on him. The boy understood the need to show respect for the young man. But his plans could upset the delicate balance between the clans. Uncle laughed, recognizing that the boy he remembered from diapers had been able to figure him out. His words sounded with a touch of pride. He noted that the interlocutor was completely unable to hide his emotions. After a pause, he offered to tell everything that was bothering him. Uncle wondered about the possible danger. They needed a power like Sans. The brothers had been eyeing these lands for a long time. So far they had no proof, only speculation. However, the enemy's plan could come to fruition at any moment. They were definitely up to something terrible. The strongest of the warriors, Beck, was no ordinary soldier. It seemed impossible to persuade him. His uncle had made an appointment for him yesterday, but he was busy. The rumors about their special relationship with Mrs. Pang only added to the confusion. The protagonist denied the rumors, claiming that they barely knew each other. They tried to negotiate, but so far to no avail. My uncle offered to organize the meeting, assuring me that he could handle the rest of the business on his own. His confidence seemed unshakable, as if he had thought out every step beforehand. Sukdokwol recalled yesterday's arrangement by introducing himself formally. His gaze slid over the person he was talking to, as if trying to determine if he was really talking to the head of the Sukpung Pyoguk clan. The guest had apologized for the incident the day before, though everyone involved had already gotten to know each other. She doubted that the reason for their invitation was limited to formalities. He addressed the man politely, asking if he was Mr. Sok. There was hope in her voice as she began to formulate her request. His assistance to his mistress was not motivated by self-interest, but by deep respect. Every action of the young man reflected devotion to duty, not personal ambition. Jean stated that his future plans were unrelated to recent events, in an effort to avoid misunderstandings. Guy returned the item to Mr. Peck, adding that he had an important proposal to make. By showing a little trust, they could have the dual benefit of quenching curiosity and gaining valuable experience. His words sounded convincing despite the hidden subtext. The guest's voice trembled as he tried to clarify what was behind the curiosity. Doubt was in every gesture. The boy noted that his interest in Genju, one of the best bandits, was not accidental. Every action of the young man raised questions that demanded answers. The guest asked if she was sure she had the strength to stand up to Genju. If there were still doubts, he offered to test her abilities in practice. Doubts were in the air as to whether Jinho would be able to resist Beck's iron fist. His strength seemed insurmountable, but the young man was not going to give up. Mr. Suk was stronger than he could have imagined. His apology sounded sincere, but there was an undercurrent of determination in it. He asked if he was ready for the upcoming test. The wish of good luck sounded warm, but with a touch of anxiety. A strange, almost unbearable energy emanated from him. His every gesture seemed to be filled with a hidden power that overwhelmed those around him. The guest didn't even realize that he had used the power of the divine fist. The thought that he was capable of such a thing caused him to be slightly confused. The first thing to do was to find a way to deal with his incredible speed. Without that, the chances of victory seemed slim. He put his strength into a quick and strong punch, but froze in surprise. Nothing happened. Jinho remained unharmed. His movements were so fast that they were barely traceable. Every move seemed deliberate, as if he knew in advance how it would end. The difference in their levels was obvious. To find a weakness, it was necessary to carefully analyze his every action and prepare a counterattack. He decided to fight at full strength despite the risks. It was the only way to understand what the enemy was capable of and to take action. The energy emanating from his opponent seemed almost unreal. His every step was filled with confidence, as if he knew the outcome of the fight in advance. His only goal was to demonstrate his capabilities. Every movement said that he was ready to go all the way. The enemy suddenly shortened his distance, taking him by surprise. This tactic required an instant reaction, but there was no time to think about it. While one was thinking about strategy, the other was already in action. The speed and determination of the opponent left little chance for a successful counterattack. The enemy's every move seemed predictable, but the force with which he attacked was overwhelming. It seemed impossible to cope with such an assault. The tension in the air was building with each passing second. Both fighters showed incredible stamina, but the outcome of the fight remained unclear. With each blow, it was clear that the enemy was not going to give up. His determination was unwavering and his strength was intimidating. The thought of seeing the limit of his opponent's capabilities kept him on his toes. However, the chances of that seemed elusive. The risk was great, but there was no point in retreating any longer. The enemy called for an attack in full force, leaving no chance for doubt. Until now, he had only used a fraction of his power, but now the situation had changed. The certainty of victory seemed undeniable, and the chances of retreat were vanishing. The power of the Peng clan was truly impressive. Every movement of the opponent displayed incredible strength and skill that was hard to ignore. The divine fist technique seemed to be beyond human capabilities. Its power was so great that it caused admiration and fear at the same time. It was risky to go this far, but there was no other choice. Every step forward required great concentration and strength. He reassured those around him that everything was under control. His calmness was reassuring even though the situation remained tense. Yoon expressed uneasiness, fearing the possible repercussions. However, the confidence that the Lord could handle it did not leave him. That was the end of it. The enemy seemed to have seen enough to realize who he was dealing with. The result was completely in line with the expectations from Mr. Sok. Even those who doubted could not deny his skill now. He asked if everything was all right, emphasizing that such a talent should be developed, not hidden. His words sounded sincere, as if he wanted to help someone important to him. Jin-ho, everything was going according to plan. An approving nod was the response to the young man's successful actions. The more information that was gathered about him, the more respect grew. It was time to prepare a report for the clan. The news of his encounter with Dragon Suk was sure to attract attention. His actions were perplexing. Every decision seemed logical, but his true goals remained a mystery. Sukpung Pyaguk's territory. The possible cooperation seemed like a distraction. The situation required extreme caution. The plan needed to be adjusted. Strengthening the ranks of the guards became a priority to minimize the risk of escape. That was now taking a backseat. The main task remained finding the escapees. Such an escape alone was unlikely. Confidence in their involvement seemed hasty. Evidence was needed before conclusions could be drawn. Blank eyes and shredded documents worry seemed unnecessary, but anxiety still hovered in the air. Since Mr. Beck had personally vouched for it, there were no alternatives. Their persistence made it impossible for them to refuse. The hope for a favorable outcome did not leave him. In spite of all the difficulties, he believed that everything would turn out in the best possible way. He calmed the people around him, assuring them that he was fine. How can one stay calm when there is chaos all around? But there was no need to worry. Jin-ho could take care of himself. Yet an old acquaintance will soon see what Jin-ho is capable of. His change will be evident to everyone. The changes in Mr. Jin-ho were noticeable to everyone. His growth and development were impressive, leaving those around him in admiration. Jin-ho stood in the center of the hall, his figure appearing more imposing than before. His clothes, once simple, now emphasized his status, and his gaze expressed unwavering determination. Baldy surrendered and begged for mercy. His palm involuntarily clenched the hilt of his sword, sweat dripping down his face. The guard stepped forward sharply, blocking the way. The weapon in his hands glinted in the sun, and his voice sounded like a warning that the invasion of this land would not go unpunished. The crowd rushed forward, shouting that the protagonist would regret daring to invade the Chi lands. At that moment, our guy took his katana out of its sheath and started chopping down the crowd of malcontents, advancing further and further. The rumors of Jin-ho's increased strength were true. Now every movement of the young man was like a hurricane, leaving traces even on the stone slabs. The audience froze, amazed by what they saw. A voice from the thicket demanded an immediate answer. The shadows in the forest did not move, but the tension was building. The questioner's patience was wearing thin by the second. The chief clenched his fists, stepping closer. His face contorted with anger, as if every previous act of the intruder had overflowed the cup of his patience. A frightened look slid through the crowd, as if seeking support. How could they call themselves bandits when fear paralyzed every movement? The mess that had occurred had already managed to upset everyone. But instead of apologizing, he decided to bring the girl, as if that would fix everything. Our hero provokes the chief to attack. He wants to end this battle quickly without allowing his defeat. He grabbed his opponent's sword with his bare hands without using a weapon. Surprise was reflected on the faces of those around him, as if they couldn't believe their eyes. The impossible seemed to be a reality. The situation was developing in such a way that even skeptics began to doubt their beliefs. One by one he defeated all his allies. Now it was the turn of the main opponent, and the outcome of the fight seemed a foregone conclusion. The thought of being defeated by someone so insignificant was repulsive. However, the facts spoke for themselves. He could barely contain his irritation as he watched. The situation seemed to be spinning out of control, but it was not in his nature to give up. Everyone present had suffered a defeat. It was urgent to report what had happened to prevent further losses. It was necessary to use everything at hand and escape. The enemy didn't leave a chance, even if it seemed cruel. The girl's appearance caused mixed feelings. On the one hand, it seemed ridiculous. On the other hand, her presence added to the tension. If a girl could stand up for herself, why couldn't he? The thought made him smile slightly, but there was a look of approval in his eyes. She had learned from the best, and it was evident. Now all that was left was to find the remaining opponents to finish what she had started. There was a sudden suspicion that he might have tried to harm himself. It was necessary to check if something dangerous was hidden. Such care was worthy of respect. In such cases, no mistakes could be made. Every detail mattered. Pang Jin-guk asked for more details about the head disciple of the Suk clan. The interest in this person was clearly not random. At the moment, he was considered the main contender for the throne. There was no doubt about his abilities, though no official announcement had been made yet. There was nothing special about him. His lack of talent made it impossible to declare him the successor. How could such a man dare to propose to his daughter? The insolence of this act caused indignation. However, the senior advisor remained calm, as if this behavior was not unexpected. He used to lead a humble life, even tried to commit suicide. Now this guy had mastered the power of 6 dragons, which was both bewildering and respectful. He led the operation to retrieve the escapees. The terms offered by Sukpung Pyong Goko seemed acceptable this time. It was good to see that they were not only interested in profit. Perhaps it was worth dealing with the situation before the rumors started. The thought of the possible repercussions was a little unsettling. He asked about the 4th young gentleman, expressing a desire to meet him personally. The interest in this person was clearly not accidental. Her admiration was obvious. The question about whether she liked something sounded with genuine interest. Now everything had changed. The thought of remuneration did not make him enthusiastic, although it had been an important motive before. She was genuinely happy that she had managed to do a good deed. The news that His Majesty had asked him to stay was surprising. It's no big deal. The main thing is that His Majesty recognized his merits. In addition, the head of Pyoguk expressed his desire to see him again. She declared that she would follow him to the ends of the earth. Her loyalty was unquestionable. Suddenly, someone started screaming and calling for him. The shout sounded loud, as if he couldn't contain his emotions. It was what it was all about, sincere and loud, but not meaningless. Suddenly he saw Ma Riyong, all beaten up, bruised. He asked angrily who had done it. Now he had to deal with these people. The noise coming from him was so loud that it attracted the attention of everyone around him. It seemed to be his whole essence, bright, loud, and unstoppable. He was not quiet, and his manner of speaking left a vivid impression. The question of who had arranged it all hung in the air, but there was no answer yet. Marin seemed to be confused. His name was once again the topic of conversation, but the reason remained a mystery. He says it's a long story. In the end, it turns out that he was beaten up during a dispute with his subordinates. The subordinates of Hojie Day Palace always attract those who have no one to stand up for them. He recalled that he himself had spoken of a trial period. But now, however, a clear answer was needed to avoid misunderstandings. They are paying for getting to my man. Ma Riyong is surprised very much and is glad for the recognition from his master. When he asked who he was talking about, the answer came with apparent haste. There seemed to be something behind the words. The master says that by touching his servant, they insulted him. Now he's come to the palace to set things right. The question sounded slightly perplexed. He asked me to tell Rin that he had come to see him. His presence was necessary for important matters. When he heard that in the direction of his servant, rage and anger boiled in his veins, and he was ready to explode on the spot. You think he's gonna turn a blind eye? There was no time to explain, and no need. He was ready to deal with them. The question about the aura sounded with obvious irritation. He didn't seem to have expected this turn of events. He insulted the master and his subordinate. Despite the contractual relationship, the situation got out of control. The commander asks what's going on here. The 4th young gentleman. The question sounded with obvious displeasure. Hojie Palace Commander, Pongwu Ryong. This guy is clearly overestimating himself, and you should look into it. He's so brazen that he's forgotten the honor of a warrior. You can't cross the line, but he doesn't seem to realize it. The power emanating from him was palpable, but not directed at anyone in particular. He seemed to be simply demonstrating his abilities, not seeking to do harm. His movements were precise and confident, as if every action had been thought out in advance. His gaze glided over the people around him, gauging their reactions. Despite its power, it didn't look threatening. Rather, it was a display of skill that commanded respect. No matter how genius he was, he always found a way to dodge. His ability to withstand attacks seemed incredible, but that only emphasized his strength. He not only withstood the blows, but responded to them with the same intensity. His endurance seemed to have no limits. The thought of ending everything in one blow hovered in the air. However, that was easier said than done. What are you capable of doing? The question sounded doubtful. His opponent had clearly underestimated his capabilities. The real Jin Ho would have apologized to the commander long ago. But the time for games was over, and it was time for action. He wasn't going to budge. Every move he made was aimed at showing who was in charge. Incredibly, he was able to defeat the commander. Was it definitely the fourth young master? The question was in the air. Now he would have to take responsibility for the failures of his subordinates. The commander had clearly not expected this turn of events. The head of Ho Jie-dae, Ma Chong-song, watched carefully. He knew that everyone had to take responsibility for their actions. This man had been in charge of Ho Jie-dae for years. He was one of those who really deserved respect. He turned a blind eye last time, but the next time would be different. The quickness of his decisions was always impressive. He had made a huge mistake, but he recognized it. Now all that remained was to rectify the situation. So what do you think? It's okay. Everyone can make mistakes. I hope the conflict is over now. It seemed that the Suk clan had a new target. The interest in him was clearly not random. From then on, Ma Ren and Yun's training began to intensify. After recognizing him as his subordinate, he began to behave more confidently. Now one must try even harder not to let his master down. But Ma Ren wasn't the only one who was sometimes annoying. At first, he couldn't get used to their rowdy behavior. Now it had become part of his routine. "Nanny, is everything ready?" The question sounded slightly impatient. He had already begun preparations despite the early hour. They suddenly had a guest. He's from the Niang clan, Niang Myung-tong. He's the eldest brother of the Niang clan. His presence always commanded respect. He seemed to know how to behave in any situation. Despite his status, he remained simple and accessible. This made him even more significant in the eyes of others. Na Young's older brother. His name sounded respectful, as if everyone who said it understood the significance of this figure. He apologized for his sudden appearance, explaining that a letter would have taken too long. His visit was unexpected but necessary. His brother insisted on honoring the commitment even though it might have been embarrassing. He had no choice, and that was obvious. He wanted to meet the man who had turned his sister's head. But she had warned him that blood kinship was no excuse for leniency. The sword, created by a master from Elder Switchy, was offered as a gift. It was gratefully accepted, realizing the value of such an offering. He could hardly believe that the sword was now his weapon. The thought of it was a mixture of surprise and pride. He was surprised that this girl was capable of such expressive emotion. Her absence from home for a month had caused concern among the others. The father could do nothing, as he was only third in the family hierarchy. This restriction was annoying, but it was impossible to change the situation. He recognized that he had no say in being in last place. This position made him feel powerless, but he tried not to show it. They seemed to get along well with each other. His energy was pure, unadulterated, which made him trustworthy and respected. Rumors of his remarkable control over his inner strength had reached him. The thought of fighting him was exciting, but it seemed inappropriate to ask for it now. Having received such a beautiful sword, he wanted to try it out immediately. The offer to keep him company was met with enthusiasm. He sensed that the upcoming meeting would not be easy. However, this did not cause fear, but only fueled interest. This would be a great training session for Ryung and Yoon. It was the right thing to do, and it wasn't an opportunity to miss. His brother was ready. The mutual understanding between them was growing by the minute, which made the upcoming test even more meaningful. He was expected to be unsure, as he was not yet accustomed to the new sword. However, his movements were crisp and confident. They fought in battle, and then Brother Yong started to feel that very sinister and wild aura. He was scared and confused. So that's how they hide the Lord's secret weapon. The thought rang out with surprise and admiration. The expectation of his brother's victory was replaced by disappointment when he easily pushed him away. No, he hadn't lost. The thought of it made him pull himself together despite his fatigue. He wasn't going to let things end so easily. The determination in his eyes spoke of a willingness to fight to the end. Not a second was to be lost. Every moment required maximum concentration and effort. The situation had become too tense. It was necessary to act quickly, even though it would require considerable effort. He had faced great warriors in his past life. The idea that anyone could defeat him seemed ridiculous. There was no way to finish quickly. But this was a great opportunity for training, and he intended to make the most of it. His ability to remain calm in such a situation was astonishing. The thought of using the last trump card was in the air, but he decided to show the power inherited from the Peng clan's ancestors. Brother Yong uses the divine lightning technique, and the blue rays from his sword filled the battlefield. He hopes that he can snatch victory with this attack. But Jin Ho easily reflects his divine lightning with his red sinister energy. The fight becomes tense. He lowered his weapon, admitting defeat. His posture was tired, and his gaze was a mixture of frustration and relief at the end of the fight. Na Young's lack of support left a bitter residue. She probably knew how it was going to end, which only added to her confusion. The defeat was an unexpected but valuable lesson. A smile slid across his face as he offered to share a meal, showing respect for his opponent. His agreement to dinner sounded sincere, especially after Na Young's praise. The rumors about the opponent's skill were true, which caused a mixture of admiration and annoyance. His opponent's skills exceeded all expectations. Even his uncle, who was known for his criticality, could not find flaws in his technique. Our protagonist thinks it's not such a bad idea to breed with them. He starts looking for ways to make his plan a reality. Jin Ho had earned himself an impeccable reputation. His successes made one wonder how quickly the world would find out about the connection to the head of the Ping clan, who rejected Jin Run. Did not limit herself to words. Her offensive gesture became a household name. This act added fuel to the fire of a long-standing conflict. Anxiety did not let him go. It seemed that the Peng clan was deliberately avoiding helping Pyagoku, which called into question their future cooperation. Impatience was growing by the minute. The anticipation of the outcome of events was becoming unbearable. But it was too late to retreat. Impatience was growing by the minute. The thought of what was going to happen this time kept my heart racing. Jin Ho is already here. His presence immediately attracted attention as if he was the center of everyone's interest. He apologized for not being able to meet the guest in person, citing preparations for the event. However, the guest noted that everything went comfortably thanks to his people. All the way the gentleman looked out of the window without the slightest uneasiness. The rooms were ready for him, but first he had to go to the banquet hall. The banners of all countries participating in the event adorned the hall. This spectacle emphasized the scale of the event and its international significance. The chance of meeting a duplicitous idiot was increased tenfold by this event. His gaze slid around the room, as if looking for someone in particular. The recent incident had undermined the status of the Pyaga clan, and now no one approached him. Everyone was concentrating on strengthening their positions, and the representatives of the different clans were getting to know each other. The sparring and strength competitions were a great opportunity for all the participants. However, many of them seemed ready to challenge him personally. Organizing youth activities spoke of a desire to see what the future generation was capable of. Although he didn't really care about that, he decided to put the thinking aside for later and concentrate on eating. The dishes on the table looked so appetizing that one could drool. It seemed that delicacies from all corners of the region had been gathered here. He went away for a while, asking Chernish to stay by his aunt's side. His absence did not go unnoticed, but no one asked any questions. The guy was heading towards someone obviously important. The question of who it might be remained unanswered, but there was determination in his eyes. Something had clearly happened. The heir of the Pyoguk clan challenged the heir of Zhongxiang Pyoguk, causing a wave of bewilderment and outrage. His offer was rejected, which caused surprise. The question as to why this happened was in the air, but there was no answer. Such fights were usually agreed upon in advance. However, the Paguk clan was not going to blindly obey all the demands, which caused tension. The tension in the air became palpable. The brother and sister seemed unfazed by what was happening, but their reactions remained restrained. The heir to the Pyoguk clan clearly did not have good intentions. His actions were suspicious, but no one dared to confront him openly. The guy interrupted the conversation to clarify whether the person he was talking to was really from Zhongxiang Pyoguk. The question sounded slightly doubtful, but the interest was obvious. The insolence of interrupting the conversation caused a violent reaction. The question of who dared to do such a thing hung in the air, but there was no answer. Did he just disappear? What happened? The thought sounded perplexed, but the situation demanded a quick response. Hey, isn't that the tiger of the Suk clan? The one who took down a group of bandits single-handedly? Yeah, that's definitely him. The thought sounded with surprise. The sudden appearance was a mixture of interest and wariness. He introduced himself as Palm One Gang from the Pyoguk clan. The relationship between their clans left a lot to be desired, to say the least. What happened between them? News of the Pyoguk clan's connection with the bandits had already spread around the world. It was said that they had been defeated, but some said otherwise. The boy admitted to being surprised. An open declaration of defeat was unexpected, especially from those who were used to acting covertly. He assumed that they were going through a difficult time and had decided to speak out directly. Perhaps it was a way of avoiding public conflict. Ho, he hadn't expected his words to hurt. However, there wasn't a single lie in them, which made the situation even more tense. He had planned to pick his opponent in front of witnesses, but Suk Jin Ho had ruined everything. His interference disrupted the plans, causing irritation. Since they had met, perhaps Mr. Suk would partner with him in training and give him a lesson or two. The thought of that brought a slight smile, even though no one was pulling on his arm. Training combat is only effective if there is a strong foundation and an equal level of training. His remark about his shortcomings sounded harsh, but with no intent to offend. He suggested calling an instructor, but the idea of asking Hebei Peng for help made him doubtful. The thought of it seemed ridiculous. Zhangxiang Pyaguk appeared to be the right level of opponent. Having a fight between the two seemed like a great idea if both sides agreed. All parties agreed to participate. This decision was an important step in preparing for the upcoming event. Pyaguk wondered what Mr. Suk was betting on in this fight. Although no one would get hurt, it was still worth considering his actions. The discussion had come to an end. The meeting on the last day of the event promised to be tense, but he hoped no one would run away in fear. Did he seriously think that a weakling like Du Juyun could be a serious opponent? The thought of that caused a mixture of doubt and interest. What's going on here? Palm One Gang and Juyun are going to fight? It even sounds ridiculous. He apologized for interfering, but decided to take matters into his own hands. His remark about his younger brother's low level was perplexing. He was not the kind of man to put his reputation on the line for unworthy people. He promised to do his best for this goal. His determination was unwavering, which was respectable. Mr. Suk had personally chosen him. The thought of that brought a mixture of pride and excitement, though he tried not to show his emotions. He was surprised at his sister's reaction, but explained that he was glad for the opportunity to learn from such a person. Rumors aren't always true, and he urged her not to believe everything she heard. He offered to invite them for soup, but the question of who was behind the door went unanswered. Mr. Suk Jin-ho's subordinate handed over the invitation to dinner. He came to tell them that the master was inviting them to dinner. The news was received with slight surprise but interest. The thought of whether to trust him hovered in the air. Perhaps he wants to correct them to call off the pakag. But even so, he was willing to go along with the idea. The invitation to enter sounded calm, but with a note of expectation. They were going to have a long conversation. The thought of it was a mixture of interest and slight tension. He offered to sit down, hinting at the long conversation to come. His gesture was confident, though the topic was obviously difficult. The kid decided to introduce himself, calling himself Du Juyun. His gratitude for his help sounded sincere, but the question of why was still open. He understood their doubts. In today's world, people rarely act without ulterior motives. However, his help was an attempt to repay his predecessor's debt. One day he found himself in the mountains weaker than Suk Jin-ho. He was on the verge of death that day, and only a miracle saved him. At the moment when his body was no longer obeying, a target appeared in front of his eyes. He had resigned himself to his fate, but fate had given him a chance. The boy remembered how someone had started the fire and saved him. That person became a symbol of hope and strength for him. He was from the Zhangxiang clan. He offered the boiled rice balls as if they were more than just food. His gestures showed care and respect. This memory remained his brightest memory. It became a source of strength and inspiration in the most difficult moments. The guy decided to act in this way despite his modest means. Being an ordinary man, he didn't have much money. But that didn't stop him. He was surprised that he was going to be listened to. However, he wanted to know something first to understand the situation better. The Lord had heard that Zhangxiang was one of the top 10 most powerful countries in the past. This knowledge commanded respect and interest in their history. Their country possessed vast territories and was among the most powerful states in the Central Plains. However, the Poga clan hired bandits to steal their goods. The father died in the war trying to protect the treasures of their lands. His mother left to seek help but never returned. Mom never came back. How many obstacles she had to face since she was no longer a child. He apologized for bringing up painful memories. She replied, however, that she had become stronger because of it and had realized that she could not give up. The boy offered to follow him. His confidence and determination inspired trust. Even though the path ahead seemed difficult, he demonstrated excellent body control, turning every movement into an art. His actions spoke of a deep understanding of martial techniques. Although he was still weak physically, his spirit was growing stronger every day. This was evident in his determination and perseverance. With a few training sessions, he could have been a good fighter. His potential was obvious, though it took time to unfold. His speech was a little harsh, but sincere. Every word was spoken with confidence, though sometimes it lacked diplomacy. The boy moved with ease, but the fault was his overworked muscles. Despite the fatigue, he continued to train without giving up. He decided not to interfere, realizing that this was her chance to become stronger. It was an opportunity she couldn't pass up, and he supported her determination. She recognized that she had turned a blind eye to what was happening for too long. Now it was her turn to act, and she was ready for it. The guy says it's his turn to hit and gets into a stance and yells a cue, hitting forward. But the gentleman quickly teaches the little one to be blindly unconfident in his abilities and puts him in his place. He offered to continue later, but she needed to rest. His concern for her condition was obvious. He agreed with her decision, realizing that rest was an important part of the training process. The next day brought a feeling of strength. She felt more confident than before, which inspired new achievements. He wondered what she meant. Yesterday had been challenging, but the energy flow had become more stable, which was surprising. There were no bruises on his body, which spoke of the precision of his blows. He remembered how long it had been since he had felt so light. The thought of blood therapy piqued his interest, even though it was only a procedure to improve blood flow. The boy noticed that they had come early. The question about how they had spent the night sounded caring. Her answer was calm, but he sensed that something had changed. The kid slept like a baby and felt great. The thought of blood therapy caused surprise, but he explained that he was just removing the clamps in her body. He supported him by reminding him that it was important for the body to rest for growth. His words sounded like an admonition, full of care and understanding. The boy explained that he was using normal sword-wielding techniques. With these words, they began a training session full of determination and focus. For the first time in a long time, he felt awake on the last day of the event. Perhaps it was due to the upcoming battle where the Chanson heir and Palm One Gagan were to face off. If Jin Ho himself believed in him, then everything should work out. This confidence was transmitted to those around him, inspiring hope. He suggested a walk around the neighborhood to distract himself before the important event. Mr. Suk supported this idea. The kid was confident that he could defeat his opponent. This confidence was reinforced by training and support from his mentor. The enemy had heard that the previous ruler had finished Jiho. This knowledge added weight to the upcoming event. He who laughs last laughs. Yoon doubted his victory, but the difference in strength was obvious even to the uninitiated. The Lord himself had trained him, which made his chances of victory more real. That knowledge gave him confidence. The guy had brainwashed her well, making her think about every move. His training methods were unusual but effective. Now he was going to show her where she truly belonged. His confidence was unshakable. He acted quickly, showing that he could do more than just talk. Mr. Suk was right, and it was obvious. The kid recalls the training. None of her attacks reached their target. He wonders if he's fighting at full strength or if he has the gift of foresight. He explained that you had to direct your gaze to the right time and place. His mistake was not looking at him, but at the tip of his sword. To follow the point of the sword was to see the direction of the attack. But you had to act before the sword started moving. Returning to the fight, Pyaguk speaks up, warning that he'll have to dodge his attacks for a long time yet. Thanks to his training with Mr. Sok, the boy learned to read his opponent's attacks. His feet showed his center of gravity and his body position showed the direction of the blow. He tensed his shoulders before attacking, preparing for a decisive blow. His every move was deliberate and precise. The boy sees these movements and finally, after waiting for the right moment, hits him, striking the entire front of his body with his katana. Ju Yoon had indeed become stronger, but it was too early to rejoice. The opponent hadn't shown his maximum yet, and it was causing tension. He only grinned, realizing that the situation was not unfolding as expected. His reaction was calm, but with a hint of irritation. Poguk says he would not allow anyone to humiliate himself. His determination to defend his honor was unwavering. He was watching to see how long he could hold the advantage. The question of whether there would be enough strength was in the air. The enemy strikes forward with more force, and little Ju Yoon can barely dodge these deadly attacks. They fight strike after strike, changing their sides of attacker and defender in their battle. Now they clash their swords in a combat clinch and glare at each other. In the next instant, they sharply push away from each other. He was holding up well, but his opponent was not as easy as it seemed. The thought of how to handle the situation was unsettling. His best option was to run away, but he was unlikely to use that. His pride and determination would not allow him to back down. Realizing that it was pointless to hope for a miracle, the only way out was to act, despite the difficulties. His determination continued to burn even when the situation seemed hopeless. His persistence and will to win were stronger than any obstacles. It was the only way to win. His strategy was risky, but there was no other way. He wondered if he had really lost. The thought of defeat was bitter, but it was not in his nature to give up. Now everyone would look down on him. But he couldn't afford to give up, because that would mean the end of everything he had fought for. Who said the battle was over? His voice sounded defiant, as if he was ready to continue no matter what. A gentleman burst onto the field to stop foul play on Pyoguk's part. He jumped on top of him and pinned him down with his legs. Attacking from behind is too mean, don't you think? His words were lightly ironic, but there was disappointment in them. It was his father's style. The question of what would happen to Bomb One Gun now remained unanswered, but the situation was clearly heating up. In any case, he had a plan. He offered to bring a generator to him to solve the problem. He was outraged to learn that his family had been humiliated. His voice shook with anger, but his eyes were determined. The victory was made possible through joint efforts. The people around him expressed their gratitude, but he nodded modestly, trying not to draw attention to himself. Their praise was embarrassing. He did not understand why they were praising him so much, for he considered his actions a normal duty. The question of how to thank him remained unanswered. He declined thanks, saying it was enough for him to see results. As soon as the situation in Paguk stabilized, he promised to return. Sukjin Ho was used to living in the midst of luxury and influential people. Time flew by quickly, and even his first birthday in this world was celebrated in a big way. He was asked if he had changed his mind. The pause was long, as if he were weighing the pros and cons, but in the end determination outweighed doubt. Even in important moments, he avoided calling him father. There was still an invisible wall between them that had not yet been broken down. He was on his way to Wanghu province, which was not as far away as it seemed. It was a place connected to his roots, which gave the trip a special meaning. Long journeys were impossible now. Instead, he handed over a gift, a symbol of recognition and hope for future meetings. A man goes to the palace for combat training. He wants to become stronger and more skillful so that no one else can defeat him. A young mentor persistently offers training in an unusual place. According to him, this is the only way to reach the level of the great masters of the past. The gentleman in black snorts, demanding that the task be completed first. His tone is reminiscent of a teacher tired of cranky students. A mysterious man sets conditions for help. In return, he wants the addressee to deliver a package from a certain majesty. The experienced rider had thoughtfully left the carriage at the gate. In case the noble guests wanted to escape from the lectures, his sly gaze seemed to say. The terrain exceeded the girl's expectations. Even the herd of cows on the horizon looked like a picturesque addition to the landscape. She nodded approvingly, adjusting the collar of the pack donkey. Cattle multiply and worries increase, she said with an ironic smile. The boy waves the gift away in embarrassment as if it were a hot coal. His heartbeat quickens. It's too risky to accept a gift from this person. The sooner we finish, the sooner we'll have tea, the man concluded cheerfully, quickening his step. His companion could barely keep up with his mentor's wide strides. The market was a real test of patience. The shopping list grew to the size of a scroll, and time flowed slower than the juice from an overripe fruit. Having the goods delivered right to the house is a real blessing. Otherwise, I would have to carry everything on my back like a pack mule that lost its cart. The aroma coming from across the street promised incredible flavors. Even the most skeptical traveler could not resist such a temptation. The place looked modest, but the smell promised a real feast. It seemed that even the most inconspicuous stall could hide culinary treasures. Fate has gotten the heroes into trouble again. Apparently, even a walk for provisions is not without unexpected twists and turns. The children surrounded by strange people was alarming. The situation resembled a scene from an old fairy tale where villains kidnapped the innocent. Shopping plans fell apart like a house of cards. Instead of shopping rows, we had to deal with local mysteries. How much time had passed since then? The question hung in the air like a leaf caught between branches. Now the meetings will become as frequent as the change of seasons. The locals have already started to get used to the new faces, although not everything is easy. His swordsmanship impresses even the most skeptical onlookers. It seems that his training has not been in vain, although he is still far from perfect. Why deprive the owners of their earnings? Sometimes it's better to leave coins in other people's pockets so as not to upset the balance of the universe. A strange combination, but who would refuse a treat? Especially if in exchange they ask you to bring meat for the furry gourmet. Doubts about the reasonableness of actions are in the air. Sometimes it is better to think twice before rushing into battle with bare hands. Drawing the sword is not always the best option. Plans have a way of falling apart, especially when the enemy doesn't follow the script. Thinking about consequences is a sign of wisdom. Not everyone is able to stop before a fight to assess the possible damage. Mistakes tend to come back like a boomerang. Sooner or later, you have to pay for every mistake. Giving your name gives the enemy time to prepare. Now we have to wait for him to gather information. For servings of noodles and meat for the cat, order fulfilled. Looks like even furry guests deserve a treat. Young chefs surprise with their skills. Apparently, talent for cooking does not depend on age, and neither does appetite for experimentation. Behind the scenes, Grandma works until her illness incapacitates her. Her temporary replacement is doing just as well, although the secret recipe may have suffered a little. As soon as Grandma is well enough, it's worth coming back for another batch of noodles. The question of strange visitors remains open, as do their debts. Grandma's illness has disrupted all plans. The work is on hold. The required amount has not been raised, and a slight panic is in the air. The kids are left unsupervised, Grandma is sick, and the place is barely afloat. The only consolation is the noodles, which are still delicious. The gangsters aren't gonna stop until they get what's coming to them. It seems that even a noodle shop can become a battlefield for debts and territory. It's over, practice is over. It seems that even the most resilient sometimes give up under the weight of circumstances. Sand and water are not the best allies for training. Balance is lost faster than self-confidence. The first time wasn't so bad, although it may just be a lucky coincidence rather than real progress. That's it for today. I just need to check the nets to see if there's any unexpected good fortune stuck in there. Doubts about the sufficiency of assignments hang in the air. Sometimes even simple tasks can hide deeper meanings. Work is not only necessary for training. Even the most modest work can do more than meets the eye. Dinner promises to be peaceful. Life is gradually getting better, although it is still a long way from complete peace. Caring for others has become a new priority. Money, of course, is important, but it is no substitute for human warmth. This is no time for fighting. For now, we have to rely on the help of friends until our own strength is restored. A temporary source of income is just a step towards bigger goals. Sometimes you need to stop so that you can move faster. The place is abundant with food and spiritual items that can bring in a good income. It looks like a place where you can both eat and make money. Only a select few can reach this treasure. The young woman does not seem to be ready for such an ordeal. Spirits and other ancient creatures await. The task is not easy, but the game is worth it. At last, the target has been found. Now all that's left is to get to it, bypassing all obstacles. This find is clearly different from the previous ones. Her name is so complicated that even pronouncing it is a feat. There's nowhere to go but to fight. The situation is like a trap with no way out. Ahan seems to be thinking about something important. His silence spoke more than words. That should be enough for the transformation. All that's left is to wait for the process to complete. Giving up is not an option. It seems that fate has not prepared the scenario we had hoped for. 600 years of energy accumulation is certainly not an eternity, but it's better than nothing. The treasure has finally been found. Hope is the last thing to fade. Sometimes it is the key to success. It feels like someone bought a dinghy but forgot the oars. The waves are crashing against the side and victory seems so far away. The energy gathers in the center, dissolving into 8 flickers. The process resembles a magical ritual where every step is important. The blood starts bubbling in my veins like a boiling cauldron. The body seems to be preparing for something big. The yang energy is calming down, but not for long. It will rush outward until it opens the last gate. Having reached his goal, the athlete enjoys the moment. The effort seems to have been worth it, although it was not an easy journey. It took a full 2 hours to fill the body with power. The process is like charging a battery that is about to reach its maximum. The time spent on training more than pays for itself. The result is visible not only in muscles, but also in confidence. The work is not yet complete, but the result is already impressive. It seems that even small efforts can lead to big changes. The master was late today. Perhaps he had some important business to attend to, or perhaps he just wanted to sleep longer. It gets dangerous at night, like a forest full of predators. It's best not to linger, lest you become someone's dinner. Dinner promises to be delicious. Cooking is an art that requires patience and skill. Here, this is for you. If it won't open, maybe you should use a little more force. Sometimes even locks give in to persistence. It took a little more effort. There seems to be some mystery hidden here that has yet to be solved. The work is well done. The master, having received the message, promises to arrive soon. Everything seems to be going according to plan. Strange devices cause bewilderment. Such dimensions are not typical of ordinary mechanisms, which is suggestive. It feels as if the device is adding strength. It feels warm inside, as if energy is filling every cell. The explanation will have to wait. The devices increase potential, but their age, about 500 years old, raises questions. Don't touch the rest of the devices yet. They may still come in handy as a spare key to an unknown door. Selling them personally is not a good idea. It's better to entrust it to someone else so that you don't waste time on trivial matters. Waking up early is not the most pleasant thing to do. Sometimes, however, morning wakefulness can be a pleasant surprise. A good morning starts with a cheerful mood. For the first time in a long time, waking up brings joy, not fatigue. There's a reception scheduled for today. Looks like it's going to be a busy and interesting day. Everything is ready at the destination. All that remains is to wait for the guests to arrive. The question sounds as if the answer is already known, but still requires polite clarification. The long drive is exhausting, but seeing friends is worth all the effort. Looks like the guests are ready for a good time. Formalities are put aside. Now you can communicate without unnecessary ceremonies, which makes the meeting more soulful. Age is no barrier to friendship. The question of the reason for the meeting remains open, but this only adds to the intrigue. The letter from her brother comes as a surprise. The sister is surprised, but there is a slight hope in her eyes that it is not just a formality. The purpose of the meeting is to close the deal. It seems that even family ties sometimes give way to business interests. The letter from her brother came as a surprise. The sister did not seem to have expected such a turn of events. The purpose of the meeting is to close the deal. It seems that even family ties sometimes give way to business interests. The place arouses curiosity. Perhaps a short tour should be conducted before the start of negotiations. It is necessary to see it with our own eyes. The question of what exactly lies behind it remains open. Could this be what the sister was thinking? Looks like her hunch was right. A 100-year-old oyster is a rare and valuable specimen. Finding one is like winning the lottery. Decades of searching yielded no results. The oyster remained as elusive as a mythical creature. It's believed that finding an oyster is good luck for life. Looks like my brother went to a lot of trouble to find it. Now the main task is to sell the oyster. Half of the proceeds go to his sister, which makes the offer even more tempting. The location of the oyster remains a mystery. The brother is clearly not going to reveal all his secrets. The offer to make another deal sounds tempting. The payoff promises to be substantial. The projections sound encouraging, but it is unlikely that the full request will be fulfilled. The problem can be solved by finding a reliable seller. That seems to be the key to success. The details of the deal require careful discussion. Reliance on the partner's honesty is the main trump card in negotiations. The urgency of selling an expensive item becomes a priority. Money is not the only concern. The speed and efficiency of the transaction play an equally important role. The deal has been completed successfully. Now all that remains is to think through the next steps so as not to miss out on the benefits. Red oysters promise many benefits. A dinner prepared with them will be a real highlight. Eating out is a great idea. Time to check on those kids and enjoy some nice company. A hard day has come to an end. It's time to relax and enjoy a moment of peace. Did they close already? I guess even the most trustworthy places fail sometimes. Something's gone wrong. The hope that grandma is okay remains the main thought for now. The request for forgiveness sounds sincere. It turns out that the reason for the delay lies in the police stations. Grandma had been sick for a long time and yesterday she passed out. The people of the neighborhood helped organize the ceremony, which was a small consolation. The place is not far away, at the foot of a mountain. It seems that even in sad moments, nature remains beautiful. The door seems to have been left open. Returning home for inspection becomes a necessity. Yoon, as the eldest, takes responsibility. His calmness inspires confidence. It's good that Yoon doesn't slow down. His determination helps him cope with difficulties. Putting them in danger is not something you want to do, especially the nanny. The store and debts become an additional burden. Sometimes it seems easier to give up. But such thoughts quickly give way to determination. Making so much money in one day is not an easy task. The question of how to cope remains open. There's no humanity in them. They know perfectly well that the family has lost their grandmother, but that doesn't stop them. Money is important, but not so important that you forget to care. Every kitten deserves attention, even if it takes effort. The situation is getting more and more confusing. It seems that even the simplest solutions can be complicated. The gentleman from the martial arts palace appears unexpectedly. His presence evokes a mixture of respect and anxiety. The question about feeling well sounds sincere. After a short pause, the conversation turns to more important topics. Listen carefully and be ready to act. Sometimes these are the moments that determine the outcome of events. The challenge is on: is there a brave man present who is ready to fight? The atmosphere is heating up. Cowards who only know how to talk. Their behavior is bewildering, not respectful. He is indeed powerful, but that is no reason to turn a blind eye to his methods. It is better to listen to advice before passing it on to others. They're like cockroaches. The more you kill them, the more new ones appear. I guess soft methods don't work. In this case, you have to take drastic measures. To prevent new cockroaches from appearing, it is better to deal with them locally. The first rule is to keep your friends informed. Information can be the key to solving many problems. If they don't want to be swatted, let them stay out of sight. Sometimes the best defense is to just stay out of sight. Patience is not just a virtue but a necessity. Without it, even the simplest tasks become impossible. I can't take it anymore. Endless claims and complaints are beginning to tire. They run away from our hero. Watching your step is a useful habit, especially when there are so many surprises around. A little patience and everything will work out. The main thing is not to give up, even if it seems like you have no strength left. Everything is ready, we can start. Gratitude for the help sounds sincere, although the help was given without too many words. Thank you so much for your support. Sometimes even a little help can make all the difference. The promise of rest turned into cooking dinner. For some people, however, cooking is not a problem but a pleasure. Seol offers to take care of the salt, but handles the task herself. Her concern for others is evident even in small things. The question of the noodle shop is still open. Its continuation is necessary, because we need something to live on. The offer to work together sounds tempting. Seol will help Auntie and the boy will take care of the noodle shop. The idea of staying here is exciting. I just need a helper and cooking 2 more servings isn't a problem. The guy's clearly not a weakling. His help will be useful, especially in running a noodle shop alone. They will stay here until they are ready to live independently. The issue of payment takes a back seat. You don't need an answer right away. Time for reflection is given to think things through without rushing. Protecting soul requires strength and rest. Staying here is a chance to learn new things and stay safe. The decision to stay is made. The request to take care of them sounds sincere even without the promise of payment. The desire to become stronger requires an investment. The question of how to pay for the help remains open. But Auntie doesn't mind. The joke about the paycheck lightens the mood. Auntie will pay for her help, since the main work will fall on her shoulders. Dinner continues and Auntie's efforts are not wasted. Her cooking skills are commendable. The pleasure house raises questions. Is everything in order, or is there something suspicious behind the silence? The head of the pleasure house is acting strangely and it's causing concern. He took all his savings and disappeared. His boldness borders on recklessness, but that doesn't make the situation any less dangerous. The transition to the main topic is inevitable. The reason for the gathering is known and the elder does not intend to keep silent. Caution is necessary. His suspicious behavior is alarming, but it's too early to draw conclusions. Waiting is not the best option, but there are no other options. His connection to the Suk clan makes it even more difficult. Attacking him would cause the Suk clan to retaliate. The head of the pleasure house didn't seem to be used to such risks. The guilty party will be the one with the sword, not the one who gave the order. These are the rules of the game and they cannot be changed. The hatred for him is obvious, but one must act with caution. Emotions can lead to irreversible consequences. In that case, you'll have to send someone special. This is the only way to accomplish the task at hand. Now you can move on to discussing the contract. All details must be thought out to the last detail. The dream is over and it's time to take action. Perhaps it will help you find a solution to the problem. The brush in your hands requires precision. Control of force is the key to success in this delicate work. The tone of the underlining varies according to the temperament of the person. It seems to be clear even without explanation. Humor helps to defuse the situation. Even without any unnecessary words, it becomes clear that the situation is not so simple. The wait for their arrival has been long, but today's visit was a surprise. The hunt for him continues. He's heading toward the room with the sign. The purpose may be blackmail, but the request not to disturb him still stands. They don't seem to understand what's going on. We'll have to do things differently to get results. The situation is becoming more and more confusing. It looks like we will have to look for new approaches to solving the problem. Where are they headed? The question remains open, but one thing is clear. The situation requires caution. You don't want to wake them up. They are already on edge and any wrong move could lead to conflict. How did he find out? It's time to leave before the situation gets out of hand. Danger is close at hand. Chernish is given the task of keeping an eye on them. His skills make him perfect for the task. Dominus leaves it to Chernish. We need to focus on other matters for now, but control is maintained. The guy will attack another ninja from behind, quietly and quickly. Our protagonist has become a real professional night assassin. He was on the roof just a second ago. His abilities are clearly beyond expectation, which makes him even more dangerous. To agree to go up against such a monster is a clear sign of desperation. The situation seems hopeless, but it's too early to give up. No, he will not be allowed to die. The determination to save him outweighs the fear of danger. Who is he and what force is driving him? Questions remain unanswered. His friend has given up, but that doesn't mean the fight is over. Sometimes one man's defeat is the beginning of another man's victory. Persistence and high morale are his main trump cards. He will squeeze information until he gets answers. His choice doesn't matter. Either way, the truth will come out and it will change everything. The Bloody Giant and his friends are behind this. Their orders have led to the current situation, and that cannot be ignored. Engaging in combat is strictly forbidden. If something goes wrong, running away is the only way out. If they sense something amiss even in their sleep, their abilities have clearly improved. That makes them even more dangerous. Today you have to put what you've learned into practice. At night, the risk of injuring or even killing someone increases. Self-doubt is best left for later. If they're ready to move on, they'll have to risk their lives. Retreat is not in his plans. His determination to continue the fight remains unshaken despite all the difficulties. I have a bad feeling about it. Perhaps I should stop and think, but there's no time to think. It looked like it was just the wind. However, the feeling of unease did not disappear, which was suggestive. No, it wasn't him. Then what is it? The question remains unanswered, but one thing is certain: danger is close at hand. They tried to kill him, but bad news awaits them. His response promises to be decisive and ruthless. Salik shows up unexpectedly. His presence causes panic and everyone rushes to the scene. This blow is aimed right at the heart. The conflict seems to have reached the point of no return and no compromise is possible. The order to kill him comes loud and clear. However, he realized long ago that he was their target and he is ready to fight. Negotiations are useless. The only thing left is to use force to resolve the conflict. Plan B was to attack the entire group if the mercenaries failed. However, it was clearly underestimated. The underestimation of his abilities becomes obvious. The thought of escape is not even considered. The fight is inevitable. He was trapped, but he had been attacked too often for it to be a surprise. The question of whether money can solve everything sounds rhetorical. However, in this world, money solves a lot of things. Murderers have broken into his home and he is offered money. A warning not to overreact was ignored. His opinion won't change overnight. The monastery remains a place where everything is decided by its own rules. Cleaning up the mess will be the first step to restoring order. The soldiers did their job. Their efforts were not wasted, although the result could have been better. No matter how strong he is, he's still a young man. His strength does not cancel out his inexperience and mistakes. His speed is impressive. No one expected him to be able to move so fast, putting everyone on edge. Among this trio, he is the most unpleasant. His behavior and manner of communication irritate the people around him. His confidence in his abilities makes him unshakable. However, even this confidence can be shaken. Chernish is an unusual cat who lives on Mount Taysan. Together with his master, they have experienced many adventures and now he has become part of Sook's squad. Only the company of the host dispelled the boredom. However, the new place they had moved to was not without adventures. In these lands dwells the king of all beasts. Chernish watched him but stayed away for the moment. The master has decided to protect the humans, and now Blackie has to take care of the beasts of the land. The time has come to overthrow the king. The wolf is surprising. His appearance adds tension to an already complicated situation. A big tiger is trying to kill some little puppies. Our kitty looks at this and thinks what can be done. The situation is heating up and every step requires caution. A mistake can lead to irreparable consequences. Questions remain unanswered. But one thing is clear: we must act quickly. Delay can be too costly. The situation requires attention. Every step must be thought through to avoid unexpected consequences. The little wolf cubs are now under protection. Raising them will be an important task for the whole team. Someone is asking the gentleman to take a look at this. The discovery requires immediate attention and further study. Blackie seems to have made some friends. These creatures could become valuable allies in the future. Lupus are adorable, but raising them will take time and effort. It's good to have people around who are willing to do it. Perhaps they are spiritual beings too. The main thing is to bring them up in the right way so that they will be useful. Wolves can be great protectors of livestock. Welcome to the family, where they will be called Zhong Rang, Huang Rang, and Cal Rang. Sir has received a letter from Sokpung Payaguk. Its contents are interesting but require careful study. The apology for the inconvenience sounds sincere. The possibility of meeting later is satisfactory to all parties. Yoon and Ma Ren look at him with disbelief. There is a sense of persistence within him, pushing him to learn martial arts. The letter from Jang Ho contains good wishes and a promise to visit. A face-to-face meeting is certainly better than correspondence. The transfer of information happens quickly. It is necessary to prepare for upcoming events so that everything goes smoothly. This morning's call raises questions. Yoon and Ma Ren's cancelled training hints at something serious, possibly gangsters. The challenge is to visit all the stalls at the fair. The expectation to see different dishes that can be cooked at home was not justified. The meeting is organized to demonstrate something important. What it is remains a mystery, but intrigue is building. The old noodle shop evokes mixed feelings. Despite its simplicity, its noodles were incredibly tasty, which surprises many people. Kek Jang's performance is surprising. The title sounds unusual, but it hides a special meaning. Kekjan is named after the future owner. It's a shocking surprise, but you'll have to get used to it. It seems wrong to name an institution after yourself. However, the design has already been finalized and it is too late to retreat. The gift of a prepared seat is bewildering. His generosity is hard to accept, but impossible to refuse. The spacious room is divided into visitor and accommodation areas. The question of how to cope with the influx of clients remains open. Don't underestimate yourself. The Lord's faith in Auntie gives her confidence in her abilities. The official opening of the establishment becomes an event. Word spreads quickly and the search for new employees begins. After all the events, a long-awaited visitor appears. His visit becomes a pleasant surprise for everyone. The joy of the meeting is mixed with admiration for his exploits. He tackled the local bandits and opened a luxurious establishment. He wasn't a star, but his accomplishments are impressive. Ken Ajindok is the strongest of the assistants. His appearance with him was a surprise to everyone. The transition is quick. His confidence that he has something to say is bolstered by his connection to the Sok clan. He knows what is happening now. Trust in others is at zero, and this makes the situation even more tense. It's time to test what his subjects can do. Their actions could be the key to solving many problems. Before appointing a subordinate as a teacher, it is worthwhile to test his abilities. The question of his readiness remains open. The border zone becomes a place of testing. The skills and determination of the teacher candidate can be assessed there. Despite the doubts, Yoon and Ma Ryong's abilities are not questionable. Their potential is obvious. Accepting a former subordinate as a teacher is a difficult step. Ma Ryong has to prove his worth. Show them what you can do. Demonstrating skills will be the key to recognition and respect. If not interested, you can leave. However, the desire to stay and watch shows his curiosity. The hope of learning a lot from them is mutual. The first steps towards mastery are always exciting. Excitement before a test is natural. It emphasizes the importance of the moment and the seriousness of the task. The inability to allow yourself to relax becomes a problem. Sometimes even the strong need rest. His technique is astonishing. The rumors that he disgraced a warrior in Sheet Psychican turn out to be true. He has indeed gotten stronger. His progress is impressive, and it is a pleasant surprise to those around him. Now he is ready for new challenges. His determination and skills make him a serious contender. He continues to fight despite the pain. The use of external energy raises questions, but the result is clear. He does not give up even when the situation seems hopeless. His perseverance becomes an example for others. The concept of external energy raises questions. His ability to harness it seems almost unbelievable. He himself doesn't realize how he did it. His actions seem spontaneous but effective. The atmosphere is heating up to a fever pitch. It may be worth stopping to avoid further conflict. There is no need to declare a winner. It is better to see a doctor to recover quickly after the fight. During this time, he learned a lot. Using the breathing technique was an unexpected discovery for him. Hope for the teacher remains high. His students want to learn the same things to become stronger. His popularity is growing. People are beginning to notice his achievements and are increasingly turning to him for help. The items meet expectations. All that remains is to decide on prices to finalize the deal. Courses are available for 31, 60, and 90 days. If you buy a semi-annual course, you get 20 days as a gift. The longer the contract, the cheaper it is. Meals and accommodation are included in the price, which makes the offer favorable. The minimum term of the contract is 6 months. Despite the desire to sign him, some details are worrisome. State tax complicates the process. Second- and third-tier applicants are more likely to agree to long-term contracts. Gratitude for the help sounds sincere. However, there's no reimbursement for those who escape. The master is clearly in a bad mood. Perhaps we should discuss the current problems to find a solution. Talking in private becomes necessary to discuss important details in private. Isn't it too early for a grueling workout? The question of exertion remains open, but the determination does not falter. Caring for him does not go unnoticed. Showing something new becomes a pleasant surprise for both of them. His abilities command respect. What he has shown requires memorization to use in the future. A new technique becomes the subject of discussion. Its efficiency and uniqueness impress others. A new technique is being admired. Its uniqueness and effectiveness become the subject of discussion among the students. The technique is called Chirgisjik and belongs to the highest level. It takes time and effort to master, but the result is worth it. High-end technology requires not only its mastery but also a deep understanding of the fundamentals. Without this, progress is impossible. The movements shown earlier do not resemble techniques from the thunder chase styles. Their uniqueness raises questions. Performing a technique in a regular rhythm becomes a challenge. However, this is the way to achieve mastery. The ability to strike with lightning indefinitely seems incredible. However, it becomes a reality with a new technique. He tries his best until he becomes a master of a Hyryuluk. The basics are important and their study should not be skipped. The fatigue after the training is felt. But that's no reason to stop. Tomorrow we will have to work on ourselves again. The result of the training was expected. The instructor praises the students for their efforts, ending the session on a positive note. A boy receives a letter from the Culture Academy. The house is empty and his thoughts are occupied with training, but the message demands attention. The young man is jealous of his brother Ma Ryong's success. Failure is annoying, but it makes him wonder why he's doing so well. The mentor looks at his apprentice with a slight irony. It seems that he has not yet realized that mastery is not magic, but sweat and calluses. The young man's body is still weaker than his ambition. Thoughts of training to the point of exhaustion mingle with the reproach that he's not far from a hospital bed. Ma Ryong's brother tells him to start with the basics. But the stubborn boy is already trying to master the complicated techniques, ignoring the basic moves. The letter from the academy comes at the perfect time. The young man decides to discuss it with his mentor before his luck runs out. The boy hesitates at his mentor's suggestion. His face remains deferential, but inside he's squirming. With him, the mentor shrugs his shoulders, seeing his pupil's doubts. If he doesn't want to learn, he can blame himself when he loses the first fight. The guy vows to protect So-seol until she finds a husband. Motives? Probably fear of loneliness. Or an excuse not to do the dishes. The mentor notes the maturity of the young man's thoughts, but doubts his readiness. Time is a resource that is always in short supply. Now brothers Ma Ryong and Lee Jun will be looked after. They will have little time for household chores. The boy vows to do his best for So-seol. The mentor suggests starting with security, but the boy is ready for something more. From tomorrow, training with the fighters from Puruk will be part of the routine. However, no one has cancelled the household chores. The young man refuses to take the easy way out. He is willing to work hard to prove his worth. The mentor nods approvingly. The night passes quietly. The boy remembers a letter to deliver. Time flies, and there are more things to do. The sister seems to have blabbed about the ancient red writings. Now everyone knows that the young man is connected to something important. Late afternoon finds the guy sorting through old records. Every line is a clue. But there's not enough time for everything. But their number leaves much to be desired. The mentor agrees: more effort, more visitors. The idea of a lack of unique dishes seems obvious. Popular restaurants have such things, but here there is only a standard menu. Ordinary food doesn't draw a crowd. Without a twist on the menu, customers prefer other places. It's time for a change. The mentor offers a solution to the problem. The young man takes the initiative, promising to make the restaurant attractive. So-seol's sister arrives with an unexpected guest. The commotion surrounding the visit raises questions as to why there is so much fuss. The person accompanying So-seol is emitting a strange energy. A martial artist? His aura is clearly unusual. The young man ponders the motives behind the visit. His sister rarely shows up without a reason, and here he has a mysterious companion. Brother and sister have not seen each other for a long time. The conversation begins by asking why she has come? A warning perhaps. So-seol's satellite looks dangerous. His connection to the Tang family and the Sangha service suggests ulterior motives. The young man doubts the need to communicate with the guest. Everyone has their own reasons, but is it worth getting involved in someone else's business? Tang Gunmyeong explains the reason for the visit. He wants to talk, but his connection to the Tang family is wary. The mentor agrees to listen to the guest. Politeness is fine, but it's too early to trust a man from the Sashontan family. Tang Gunmyeong is being formally introduced. His name and background sound a warning: this man is not simple. The guest calls himself a representative of the Sashontan family. So-seol confirms his words, but her gaze is full of doubts. The conversation turns to ancient dragons and their influence. The guest knows much, but his understanding seems superficial. The guest's hands look overly manicured. Not a single callus, strange for a man who has been through the ordeal. The guest's clothes raise more questions than his words. Even the mentor's nephew looks braver than this guy. The mentor asks a direct question: how does the guest know about the ancient red writings? The young man wonders how the guest knows about ancient writings. Why was it necessary to bring this man here in the first place? The information about the writings wouldn't have reached Sankona if it hadn't been for the leak. The mentor suspects that someone has blabbed. The guest asks for clarification. He did not come for the red writings, but his true purpose remains a mystery. Turns out the guest's target is a 1,000-year-old seashell. Why would he want it? There are more questions than answers. A 1,000-year-old pearl mollusk is a rare find. The guest admires his mentor's abilities, but immortality is not in his plans. The young man listens attentively, but his thoughts are occupied with something else. The guest seems to know more than he is saying. The guest asks the big question: will the mentor be able to find the 1,000-year-old clam? No answer yet, but intrigue is building. Such rarities are once in a lifetime. The guest promises to help if the mollusk can be found. Our protagonist repeats that he cannot guarantee the success of the operation. The interlocutor understands this and says that he will still not forget his help. The search is going on every day, but so far no luck. Time is running out, but luck is not smiling. The deadline is looming. The guest reminds us that time is short, and this adds to the tension. The results are exceeding expectations. It seems that luck has finally turned to the seekers. The guest asks to wait a little longer. The mentor assures that there is hope, but patience is the key to success. It seems that fortune is beginning to turn in their direction. The young man notices the first signs of success. The mentor proudly shows the result. He was right. The hope has been realized and the goal is close. The clam proves to be capricious and strong. The young man holds it back with his inner strength, much to the surprise of his guest. The guy jokes that next time he should come with gifts. The mentor laughs but realizes that the joke is not far from the truth. The clam turns out to be so capricious that even an experienced young man has trouble handling it. The slightest mistake in the use of inner strength could lead to disaster. The guest admires the young man's skills. It's time to hit the road. The wagon is ready and the tutor promises to thank the guest later. The young man had hoped to rest, but things needed to continue. There was no time to relax yet. Mollusks are a nuisance. Their number is increasing and it is getting annoying. I wonder what these clams taste like. The question remains unanswered, but the curiosity is still there. Sales at the tavern have skyrocketed. It seems recent events have attracted the attention of new customers. The outsiders made a mess, but the young man quickly dealt with them. Now the tavern was back in order. The number of customers has doubled and the tavern is running out of space. Maybe it's time to expand. Expanding the tavern seems like a logical step. However, increasing the number of rooms is not as easy as one would like. Buying a new tavern becomes the solution to the problem. A second branch will help to cope with the influx of guests. The idea of a branch office makes me laugh. It seems to be a good joke, but there is some truth in it. The nanny reports to the young master that everything is ready. All that remains is to start work on the new project. The huge shrimp is a marvel to behold. Its size and flavor make you think of new dishes. Everyone tastes shrimp to appreciate its flavor. Honest reviews can help you create the perfect dish. The shrimp turns out tender, juicy, and incredibly firm. This combination is rare. The divine flavor of the shrimp amazes everyone. Even the younger master did not expect such a result. Using shrimp for dumplings seems controversial. Guests may not appreciate its uniqueness. Fried and stewed shrimp become a hit. They decide to make them a specialty dish which draws acclaim. The ingredients for the dish are found during the search for a 1,000-year-old clam. Their uniqueness makes the dish unique. Chodeha's signature shrimp dish is perfect for a tavern. Its complexity adds to its exclusivity. The younger gentleman proposes to develop a secret dish. We should enjoy the taste first and then discuss the details. SOSO Salt is surprised by the success of the shrimp. Their popularity has exceeded all expectations and the guests are delighted. Chodeha's specialties quickly gained popularity. The tavern has become a place you want to return to. The hot season is coming to an end. The morning and evening breeze brings the long-awaited coolness. The old tavern building looks dilapidated, but its atmosphere attracts guests. Perhaps it is time to think about renovation. New guests show up at the tavern. Their feedback will help improve the service and make the food even better. The old building looks worse than expected. Daughter gets a reminder to behave decently in such a place. The tavern is small and old, but its value is not in its size. Tang Gunson appears with an unexpected escort. His visit raises questions, but he maintains a smile. After a short explanation, the guests are invited inside. The situation seems to be starting to become clearer. Tang Gunson apologizes for showing up unexpectedly. He had planned to come alone, but circumstances changed. The rescue of his daughter was the reason for the visit. The head of the family personally expresses gratitude, which is surprising. Tang Gunson sincerely thanks his hosts. His appreciation sounds sincere. Tan Heron is introduced as the daughter of the head of the family. The acquaintance takes place in a friendly atmosphere. The girl offers to serve in gratitude for the rescue. Her devotion is respected. The girl insists on thanking him for saving her. Her determination is surprising, but there is no stopping her. The strange expressions on the faces of the guests are now understandable. Their visit was due to unexpected circumstances. Ms. Tang's stay at the tavern is limited to 5 years. It's a compromise that suits both sides. 5 years isn't that long. The hosts agree to help, but the girl doesn't rule out that she wants to stay longer. There are no plans to violate the laws of the species. If after 5 years the girl wants to stay, she will not be forced to leave. Having a Tang girl will be beneficial. 5 years of service is an acceptable term as opposed to a lifetime. The matter with Heron is settled. All that remains is to sign the agreement and begin a new chapter in the tavern's life. A duel with a master of the underworld becomes a lesson. It's not just a fight, but an opportunity to learn something new. Training through dueling is an unusual approach. The underworld master shows that even combat can be useful. The master offers to concede the first 3 blows. His confidence brings a smile to his face, but his opponent is in no hurry to agree. Additional concessions seem unnecessary. The mood for the fight is already serious, and it's time to get down to business. Both competitors are ready to show what they can do, and the tension in the air is building. The first blow is struck. The master demonstrates his skills, but the opponent is in no hurry to surrender. The master asks if this is all that the opponent has to show for it. Now the fight gets really serious. The opponent's movements change. The master notices this and prepares for a new stage of the fight. The master notes the changes in the opponent's fighting style. The duel becomes even more tense and interesting. The fight continues, and the master demonstrates incredible skills. His movements are precise and his blows confuse his opponent. Observers watch the bout closely. Each blow and movement makes you think about the skill of the participants. At this level, not even 6 dragons could resist. The master's blows are aimed at vital points, making them deadly. I wonder who was the master's teacher. His technique is so unique that it raises admiration and questions at the same time. It's rare to possess such skills at this age. The master had clearly spent years honing his skills. The thunder punching technique is very rare. Few people are able to use it as effectively as a master. Things are about to get clearer. The fight is coming to a climax and the audience is eagerly awaiting the finale. The master demonstrates perfect movements that amaze the audience. His technique seems almost unreal. Every action of the master is perfected to perfection. His movements are precise and his technique is flawless. There's nothing mystical about it. A master simply uses his skills to show what he can do. The opponent asks why the master stopped. He is sure that he has already proved his qualifications. The master makes no secret of the fact that this was a test. His goal is to prove that he is trustworthy and can protect his daughter. I wonder who was the master's teacher. His technique is so unique that it raises questions and admiration. The place is indeed a little-known place, and it would be impolite to ask about the master's teacher. Mr. Ganju confirms that everything is fine. The young gentleman asks to be called simply Kanju. His modesty is respectful but does not diminish his interest. Heron cares for Kanju more than her father. Her divine insight helps her see everything around her. It shouldn't come as a surprise since Heron is a member of the Tang family. Her ability and concern for others is impressive. Does anyone have any worries? The question sounds like a joke, but there is genuine interest behind it. Everyone has worries, but sometimes they look strange. Something seems to be bothering the other person more than usual. No matter how much they talk about calming down, anxiety doesn't go away. Sometimes it takes time to sort yourself out. The expression on his face speaks volumes. Even the head of the Seishintan clan can be unsure despite appearing confident. Seems like a good idea. Heirs of respected families often have arranged marriages to avoid conflict. The clan head looks like the perfect candidate in terms of fighting skills. However, talk of marriage is irritating. Heron is the daughter of the head of the clan, and her future is important to everyone. Relationships between men and women are always unpredictable. Be sure to come to Seishin. Meeting the head of the clan will be an important step for all participants. Farewell sounds warm, but behind it lies the expectation of new events. The decision to stay with my sister seems logical. Sometimes family ties are more important than any travel. The conversation with the father has already taken place. It's impossible to leave your sister alone, especially if she's not married. Head clan looks confused. Even he didn't know about this turn of events, which causes slight awkwardness. Suk Jinho introduces himself and understands the reasons for the decision to stay. His calmness adds confidence to the conversation. Tang Aaron introduces himself and the gentleman leaves to train his students. His determination commands respect. The walk ends, but the impressions remain. I don't like this guy, especially because I don't know his name. Why do they just call him this guy? Addressing the head of the clan requires more respect. The rescue of an ancient artifact speaks volumes. His abilities are truly impressive, and it's hard to deny that. Perhaps his brother lost to him because of his amazing abilities. With such abilities, he could have been famous. But instead he lives in the middle of nowhere, which raises questions. His facial features give away his origins. He is clearly not an ordinary man, and this adds to his mystery. Why did the cat come here if the head of the clan isn't here? His visit seems strange, but perhaps it makes sense. Now they are going to live together. His cuteness and charm make her smile, and her interest in him grows. Why doesn't he notice her? The question remains unanswered, but that doesn't stop her from hoping for the best. Perhaps the bad reviews of the head were the reason. To make friends with Chernish, you have to like his boss. After the walk, they stop by the farm. There are 3 fluffy wolf cubs waiting, but her heart is already set on Blackie. Time flies faster than it seems. Hope for success grows, especially if someone has already achieved results. Even 6 months of training at a big school doesn't always bring noticeable progress. But Jinho is confident of success. These guys look completely different. Their changes are so noticeable that it's hard to believe it's real. The surprise is their appearance. They have become stronger, and it makes you wonder about training methods. Reinforcing basic skills and learning how to properly work the body yielded results. Their strength remained the same, but their potential was enormous. The results will be noticeable. Dealing with 5 opponents alone is not an easy task, but he is ready. The first-class security guard is confident in his abilities. His professionalism is unquestionable, but the test is still to come. Confidence is good, but now we need to check the results of training. It's time for the one-on-one. The newcomers he brought in want to see results, too. Their motivation is growing, and that's inspiring. The noise around here raises questions. What's going on? Turns out the audience wants to see the fight too. Watching the fight is interesting, and the spectators don't mind. Their presence adds excitement and tension. Sichuan girls attract attention. Their presence adds intrigue and importance to the event. First things first. The promise is fulfilled, and now we can move on to the next stage. The Lord strikes a pose and announces the start of the fight for all the spectators that have gathered here for one purpose: entertainment. The mentor advises assessing strengths and weaknesses. Using them in battle can be the key to victory. Fighting face-to-face with a spear master seems reckless. His weapons are heavier and his skills are superior. There is a way to gain an advantage. Shortening the distance can be a decisive step in a fight. One way is to shorten the distance. This will give you an advantage, especially against heavier weapons. Shortening the distance becomes a key strategy. The mentor is confident it will help in the fight. Simple punches won't do the trick. To deal with your opponents, you need to use your inner strength and finish the fight quickly. The sight of a spear used to send shivers down his spine. Now he realizes how important it is to think ahead, as his mentor advised. The battle continues, and every step requires precision. The enemy is strong, but that's no reason to give up. It's time to end the fight. Fatigue is setting in, but that's no reason to lose focus. The quick attacks aren't working. We need to find another way to end the fight, or the victory will be incomplete. He is ready to continue the fight to the end, regardless of the outcome. However, the mentor believes that enough has already been shown. Even in a losing situation, he did not give up and continued to attack. The last shot was accurate, but a little bit was not enough. Isn't that enough to enhance their clan's reputation? His efforts deserve respect and recognition. The gratitude to his mentor sounds sincere. His advice helped in the battle, and now he is ready for new challenges. There is still a lot of work ahead, but the first step has been taken. Now we need to move on and not stop. The flavor of Daraja root liqueur is amazing. Its depth is reminiscent of ginseng tincture, which is a delight. Daraja liquor cannot be bought with money. It was found in the mountains and is now a rare treat for friends. The eldest daughter was on the verge of death due to the lack of 1,000-year-old ginseng. Tang Gongmyong came to the rescue and saved her. Her little sister stayed with her. 1,000-year-old ginseng saved a life, and now everyone knows who helped. Everyone has already understood the situation, so there is nothing to discuss. The questions go away of their own accord. The relationship between Ms. Tang and the young man is not what it seems. The head of the Tang family is known as the King of Fate. If the head of the family didn't like him, he would find another way to thank him for saving him. The conversation about marriage brings to mind the 3 children of the Pei family. They are now at a closed practice, which is of interest. Discussing marriage is not the main purpose of the visit. The guest is more interested in the progress of the students. A one-year training course could be an excellent basis for cooperation. It would benefit both parties. Motivation and patience are the key to success. Training inner strength takes time, but the result is worth it. There is a belief that fighters have two main obstacles: wall of skill and wall of despair. Overcoming the wall of excellence seems impossible. But if there is a way, it will change everything. The method is simple: hit until you hit it. Unlike the wall of despair, this barrier can be overcome. A shorter training period is possible. An intensive course will help you achieve results faster. The Gondong clan has come with a personal request. Dealing with an unknown enemy is not an easy task. The first disciple of the Gondong clan, Jin Guak, has defeated the great warrior Ho Chai. His progress is impressive. Even with these accomplishments, it's none of his business. He prefers to stay in the shadows and not get involved. His father sends his regards, but the young man forgot about it due to his absent-mindedness. Now the mistake must be corrected. Father wants to help the Gondong clan build its reputation in the martial arts world. This is an important step for everyone. A place where he feels at peace. Catching animals brings him joy and peace. Chernish trusts him and even snuggles up to him. Perhaps it's time to rest, but he keeps working. The joy of meeting friends. Even Chernish, usually reserved, shows interest. Chernish isn't too friendly with people. Aaron is too intrusive, so he stays away. Training with the head is rewarding, and cooking with the Lord is fun. Thanks to her, she learned a lot. The combination of herbs and cooking proved fascinating. Something has happened to Chernish. The sister notices that he looks unusual. A student from Seishantan school shows interest. His presence adds intrigue to the situation. Things are getting tense. Everyone is waiting to see what will happen next. But so far there are more questions than answers. He asks if she knows where she is. Her certainty is surprising but not embarrassing. His words sound like a challenge. If men like him rule, no wonder others know no fear. Beggars are trying to get in his way. Today will be Suk Jin Ho's last day. He's just a puppy in front of the master. The noise he made raises more questions than it answers. Suk Jin Ho has brought in people from the main clan. His actions are displeasing, but he is confident. His behavior seems rude. He does not greet his elders, which is perplexing and irritating. Insulting the clan is a serious offense. His words sound like a challenge, and it will not go unanswered. He wanted to piss her off by creating an excuse. His plan worked, but the consequences could be serious. He promises to teach her manners. His confidence borders on insolence, but that only adds to the intrigue. His plan didn't work perfectly, but the result can still be considered a success. He hadn't been able to humiliate her as he'd planned, but it didn't matter. The important thing is the case is over. His actions are puzzling. He doesn't seem to fully understand what's going on. His power is not hidden, and it becomes obvious. All his tricks and stratagems are useless. He doesn't even realize what's happened. His deception has been exposed, and now we must proceed with caution. The boy has deceived his expectations. Now she's looking at him with suspicion, and that doesn't bode well. We need to move while he assesses the situation. You can't show confusion, or it's all gone. His silence speaks volumes. He seems to realize he's gone too far. So far he's dodging successfully, but fatigue is taking its toll. Soon he won't be able to continue. This moment will be his last. His opponent is confident of his victory, but things can change. The attack is getting clumsy. He's rushing to finish the fight, but that's only going to make things worse for him. His movements are strange. He seems to be trying to hide something, but it only attracts attention. He uses others to prevent dodging. It's a dirty trick, but it can work. If he ducks, he'll hit the others. That puts him in a difficult position, but he has no choice. The clan is preparing for defense. The situation is heating up, and every step requires caution. The head of the clan decides to stop the attack alone. His decision raises respect, but also questions. He's trying to poison the enemy. His methods become more and more desperate and dangerous. An attempt to poison his opponent fails. Now he finds himself in a dangerous situation. The energy flows in his body are disrupted. It must be excruciating, but he's hanging in there. He sprayed poison too, so he wouldn't mind if the consequences hit him too. Only a top-level person could destroy energy points. His opponent was clearly not one of them. They try to stop him, but he keeps moving forward. His determination is impressive. He can explain his actions. His intentions are pure, but his methods raise questions. Misunderstandings happen, but it's no cause for conflict. He's willing to explain. The master of the village school cannot harm a student. His actions must be fair. People trust great schools like Gupa and Watersika. Destroying a small school would not be difficult. The girls vouch for it with the honor of their Sukajang clan. The man is shocked. Where did this clan come from and what is it doing here? Talk of betrayal is not worth the trouble. The honor of the Soctahant clan is unbreakable and all students will attest to that. Where's the Sukajang clan? Their absence from the meeting raises questions but not panic. Members of the Sukajang clan suddenly appear. Their visit seems unexpected, but there is a purpose behind it. The disciples, recently poisoned, are now here. Even the great Kongdong did not expect his followers to stoop to meanness. The sister advises not to anger the young man. The joke that he doesn't have the strength for the knife adds levity to the tense situation. The head orders the students to be locked inside. Examining their condition will be the key to unraveling what is happening. How can an experienced warrior attack a novice? Ironically, this is the apprentice of Kamai himself, a master with an impeccable reputation. A peaceful solution to the issue seems impossible. However, the clan leader remains calm, as if solving a puzzle. She has a different perspective. Maybe she sees things that are hidden from others, or maybe she just likes to complicate the simple. One of the great disciples appears. His presence evokes mixed feelings, but the situation calls for action. His actions are beyond reason, but this is just the beginning. There are more surprises to come. First the black rap, and now this. I think things are getting out of hand. He clearly doesn't think about consequences. His actions are impulsive, but that does not justify their destructiveness. A man with a mark on his forehead orders his subordinates to kill everyone around him, while he himself goes on the run. Finding a solution becomes the main task, otherwise the consequences will be catastrophic. His plans remain a mystery, but one thing is certain, he will not stop without a fight. The energy dissipates and it causes him to panic. His condition worsens, but he tries to save face. His reaction speaks volumes, but it's still unclear what exactly he's up to. Fools don't realize who they're dealing with. You have to be extremely careful in front of someone from their clan. Gratitude sounds sincere, but it is rejected. It is their duty, and they fulfill it without further ado. Another thank you, but it seems unnecessary. Just silence and the realization that everything was done right. It would be nice to have someone here to talk to. The silence is suggestive, but there are no answers yet. He's ready to tell everything. The great warrior will receive all the information, including the connection with the head of the white horse. The letters exchanged will be the key. If the conditions are not met, everything will be revealed. Good information. Now he has a plan and he's ready to act. All that's left is to get started. He offers to send the enemy the most painful poison. However, since he has provided evidence, it is worth rewarding him. The young man looks determined, albeit without saying too much. It's good that he's not a coward, but that doesn't make him any less dangerous. The Lord probably already has a plan. Their clan is willing to help despite the complications surrounding Kongdong. As one of the 5 great houses, their clan cannot ignore lawlessness. Even more so, they are connected to the Soctahant. The actions of the great clan and the white horse caused a wave of resentment. This incident was a turning point. The conspiracies and ill will that began with the Black Lash have led to a global upheaval. A great clan blames the teacher. The fall of the clan was as sudden as its rise. No one expected such a turn of events. Few would believe the words of a great clan. The disciples founded White Khan to finish the job and save face. No one knows what he is capable of, despite his righteousness. The old man is worried, but the young man has already thought it over. The palace looks modest despite the growing number of visitors. Expansion could solve this problem. He uses his position skillfully. The students he trains are from Sokershank, which adds to his credibility. The offer to unite their students sounds tempting. However, he modestly remarks that there are those who are superior. He has no plans to return to Soctahant. If the offer is accepted, he is willing to train students for double pay. The contract with Soktumpyoguk has already been signed, and Soktumpyoguk and Sogajin are one family. He promises to think about it and give an answer. The hope for a positive outcome is reinforced by a return gift. The return gift comes as a surprise. He didn't seem to expect such generosity for his help. The gift is a token of appreciation for his help with White Horse. Soktumpyok will also receive a gift to strengthen ties. A step towards rapprochement has been taken, although the gift seems too generous. The past cannot be changed, but the future can be improved. They gradually grow closer. The son, as they call him, becomes part of their plans. Animal contemplates jumping into deep water. Managing 3 wolves is not an easy task. If you raise wolves well, they become extraordinary creatures. But will he have the strength to do so? The thought of jumping into the water seems crazy. However, he is sure that he can do it if he makes the effort. Wolves require attention and patience. The young man realizes that raising such creatures is a long process. The minions are gathering tools. Yoon is already preparing to fish. taking the rods handmade from bamboo. The gentleman says it's for moments like this that he makes his money. He helps the guys learn how to take the bait. The mentor watches from the sidelines without interfering. The boys are going to catch the biggest fish for their friends. This rest was necessary, especially after so many trials and difficulties. The girl asks the protagonist why he settled in this place. If he wanted to be famous, he could have lived somewhere else. He asks if it is important to be famous. In response, he hears the idea that being famous is the dream of every great warrior. The other girl apologizes for Aaron. She feels that her questions are too impertinent for Mr. Guan. The master says it doesn't bother him. He already knows Aaron's character and understands her curiosity. They feel a nibble and pull the rod. Apparently their favorite babysitter has caught her first fish. Everyone's happy about it. The fish that took Nanny's bait was a swordfish. She hurries to share this event with the master. The shot switches to the main character's chambers where he reflects on the guests and visitors that come to the Hajuan Tavern. He reflects on the military's interest in the guards and the Seiki clan. A realization about the concretization of the course of study comes to him. Cruelty to hardworking students is unacceptable. This rule is repeated like a mantra. Training should strengthen, not break the spirit. A young man recalls his first steps in martial arts. Back then, mistakes seemed like a disaster, but now they are part of the journey. The mentor jokes that at their age they need more sleep. Laughter breaks the tension, but everyone realizes that discipline is more important than fatigue. Even a master was once a beginner. This thought is empowering and reminds us that growth takes time and patience. The master heard someone practicing so late and decided to take a look at it himself. Everyone was shocked to be visited by such a person. They apologize for the noise and inconvenience they have caused by their late practice. In response, the gentleman calms them down. The mentor suggests a different angle. He sees that all three students have weak bodies. They are the weakest of all. But also the guy sees their perseverance. He realizes that Taijiquan is the best choice to strengthen their bodies and improve themselves. Attacking from three positions at once is a risky strategy. But sometimes only bold decisions lead to victory. The young man hesitates but agrees to try. His determination resembles that of a gambler putting everything on one card. The mentor approves of the idea, although he warns about possible consequences. Experience suggests that there is no progress without risk. The plan works unexpectedly smoothly as if fate itself is leading them by the hand. Success becomes the best reward for courage. The trajectory of the blow changes at the last moment, taking everyone by surprise. Such skill is a source of admiration and slight envy. The guy blinks, trying to realize what happened. It's like a magic trick where the spectator never realizes how it was pulled off. Mentor grinned, seeing his students' reactions. Years of training have taught him to anticipate even the most unobvious maneuvers. A blow becomes a lesson. Real art doesn't obey patterns. Sometimes chaos is the best teacher. The master thinks that repeating the training would not give them new results in their training. He asks about the strength of their kick. The students say that the blow was not strong at all. They are surprised that the hit spot doesn't even hurt much. The mentor asks why on earth they didn't repel his not strong and not fast punch. This question takes them by surprise. They say they couldn't have because the impact changed trajectory. The gentleman says that's what he wanted to show them. A young man ponders the balance between martial arts and common sense. Refusing to fight does not mean weakness. Sometimes it is a strategic move. The guy moves slowly, trying not to freeze in place. Each movement is like a dance, where a mistake is worth more than applause. Your opponent's weaknesses are the key to victory. But discovering them requires understanding your opponent better than he understands himself. Masking his own intentions, the man watches every gesture of the enemy. The perfect moment to attack will come, like a sudden marshmallow to the face. The mentor receives his thanks, nodding modestly. His apprentice resembles a cat that has found a sardine in a pile of canned food, proud and slightly dazed. A guy notices a strange type watching the practice. He sees the silhouette of a strange snake monster under the water. The thought of a long search is suddenly cut short. Finding the target is a relief, like finding the remote control after half an hour of digging in the couch. The man grins looking at him. Standing on the boat, he thinks about what he can do with this beast. The young man stares pensively into the distance, as if trying to solve a riddle that the universe itself has thrown him. The guy suddenly freezes, feeling someone's gaze on him. The sensation is similar to the moment when someone is watching. Mentor looks at the serpent as if watching a cat trying to catch its own tail. The man ponders the importance of assessing an opponent's strength. Without this skill, the path to the title of wise being seems just as far away. The guy was studying something in front of him intently. Suddenly, the serpent began to wriggle, causing waves around it. The mentor observes the serpent's endurance as if he were conducting an experiment. The young man froze in a strange pose, preparing for a lightning strike. The energy around his fist already wanted out. The guy is looking at something with bewilderment as if he saw his cat trying to open the refrigerator. His thoughts are clearly preoccupied with the question of where he is going and why. The guy shows confidence, stating that even underwater he won't miss his target. His determination is reminiscent of a shark. The young man is looking at something with obvious bewilderment. The expression on his face suggests complete confusion. The mentor draws attention to the drops of blood scattered around. This blood is a jewel. The young man looks in amazement at the strange tunnel which clearly stands out from the rest. The guy notices that the other entrances look the same, but it's this one that catches his eye. Perhaps it's a trap or a clue he's been looking for a long time. The mentor nods approvingly as if confirming the importance of the discovery. His reaction suggests that this place may be the key to their future endeavors. The man exhales in relief, confirming his hunch. This place is clearly man-made, suggesting ancient craftsmen who left their secrets here. The boy ponders the fact that a martial arts master was probably hiding here. This place may be a repository of knowledge that will help them in their upcoming trials. The young man is amazed to recognize the figure as the greatest warrior of antiquity. His story raises questions about how such a master could have died alone, leaving behind only memories. The young man notices that the warrior's body has been preserved in perfect condition despite the years that have passed. This shows that the master has reached an incredible level of skill. The boy looks at the techniques the great warrior used with admiration. Now it becomes clear why many people tried to capture him and adopt his knowledge. Mentor reflects on how the master combined techniques from different martial arts schools. This explains why he became an enemy to many and had to go into hiding. The man studies the strange elixir with amazement, which clearly has unusual powers. The guy realizes that the master stole many valuable items to achieve perfection. His death, full of grief, evokes mixed feelings. A young man reflects on how a master craftsman dedicated his entire life to his goals but never achieved them. His perseverance deserves respect despite the tragic end. A henchman watches in amazement at the strange creature that was caught during the hunt. Its size and strength cause apprehension, but also interest. Guy looks at the creature with obvious bewilderment, trying to figure out how it could be useful. His facial expression suggests that this discovery may change their plans. The man explains that the creature was caught while hunting a great serpent. Its size and power is so great that it is better to deal with it now while there is support. The young gentleman looks with wonder at the huge snake that has been the key to his progress on the path to wisdom. Its size evokes a mixture of admiration and slight fear. Guy enthusiastically announces that the snake will be the main course for dinner. He entrusts the preparation to his companions, while he concentrates on the marinade. The mentor gives permission to examine the parts of the snake that will not be used for food. His approval is cheered by the team, who are ready to start exploring. The woman is relieved that the snake, despite its size, appeared to be venomless. His attention turns to the strong teeth, which could be the material for a weapon. The boy respectfully observes the work of the craftsmen who can easily handle the cutting of the snake. Their skills are admired and trusted. The young man gives clear instructions for cutting up the snake. The blood is collected for rituals, and the meat is prepared for a communal meal. Mentor watches the commotion around the snake being cut up with a slight irony. His calmness contrasts with the energy of the others. The guy praises one of the participants for a job well done. His words sound like an acknowledgement of the importance of everyone in the process. The man looks admiringly at the pure jade oil, which is considered a true treasure. Its value is obvious to all present. That night, the Sunhong disciples were strengthening their bodies with the help of a giant serpent. Although it wasn't comparable to real magical creatures, for novice fighters, this kind of experience was extremely useful. For those who have just started learning martial arts, this kind of practice is of great benefit. It helps to strengthen not only the body but also the spirit. Meanwhile, Sam Nan, following Higvy's orders, drank the blood of the giant serpent. This ritual was to strengthen his abilities and prepare him for future trials. Soon night fell, quiet and cloudless. The tranquility of the surroundings created an atmosphere ideal for reflection and preparation for new challenges. Highway, now without the kite, focused on the next steps. His plans became more and more ambitious and his goals clearer. The young man understood that he shouldn't show weakness. However, he decided to make an exception this time to save his strength for future battles. Knowing that Koyun Suki existed could be dangerous. This discovery made everyone think about how to use it wisely. The nanny benefited from everything that was going on. Her role in the team was becoming more and more important despite her apparent modesty. Guy figured she should move forward with confidence. Her path wasn't easy, but that was what made it so valuable. The young man leaves the nanny's house with peace of mind, realizing that he has done a good deed for her. The guy agrees to the cat's request with slight irony, despite the fact that the cat couldn't digest even a simple meal. One drop is all he has to offer. The man is surprised to realize that now he will have to become a bodyguard for the cat. He finds this role both amusing and unexpected. The tutor gives clear instructions on how to arrange the ingredients. His commands sound confident, although the bustle around him creates an atmosphere of slight chaos. The guy is enthusiastically preparing for the holiday, trying to make everything perfect. His commitment to perfection is respected, despite his fatigue. The girl explains with a slight smile that work is a natural part of life. His words sound like a reminder of the importance of hard work. The woman expresses her desire to help not only Mr. Guanju but also his wife. His sincerity and willingness to participate in the family's affairs are respected. The girl greets Mr. Guanju with a smile. His good morning sounds like the start of a new day full of opportunities and adventures. The young man watches with amazement the preparations for the feast. The amount of food seems excessive, but the sudden appearance of guests may justify such a scale. The boy recalls with a slight irony how last time there were only bones left of a huge eel. The students seem to be able to handle any amount of food. The man watches in amazement as Mr. Guanju rushes over with the news of the guest's arrival. This commotion is a mixture of surprise and slight panic. The mentor respectfully mentions that Miss Peng apologizes for her absence. At the same time, Ms. Sukmayan's arrival from her ancestral home adds significance to the celebration. The boy admits with a slight smile that he was right about the number of guests. The nanny, as always, was wiser and more prudent. The young man is amazed to recognize the massive Peng from Habuki as his guest. Her visit adds an unexpected and intriguing twist to the festivities. She explains with a smile that friendships between warriors are commonplace. Such relationships help to strengthen bonds and find common ground. The girl observes with interest a guest who used to consider men unworthy of even her attention. Her behavior raises questions about her motives and goals. The girl proudly notes that her brother confidently runs a martial arts school and 2 hotels. Such achievements deserve respect and recognition. The girl proudly celebrates the success of her project. He reminds that the goods are sold in limited quantities, so you should hurry up. The guy is amazed to inspect the result of the work, which has exceeded all expectations. The quality and detail are truly admirable. The mentor presents a gift with a smile that will be a great addition to the students. Clothing appropriate for a martial arts school will emphasize their status. The man gratefully accepts the gift, not expecting such a gesture. For the first time, a look of sincere joy and satisfaction appears on his face. The girl proposes to renegotiate the contract with Sikpun Pyagok. Her words sound like a reminder to update the terms of cooperation. The young man reacts to the news of the inheritance with a slight irony. He is not so much interested in the struggle for power as in the possibility of getting a new order. The girl smilingly recalls her gift, which apparently had been forgotten. Her words sound like a joke, but with a hint of seriousness. The boy anxiously asks what has happened. The anxiety reflects the importance of the moment and the need for urgent action. The young man reacts with slight irritation at the news of an important guest. It sounds like a reminder of Mr. Guanju's priorities. A young man spends his time in Wangwei, attracting many visitors. However, the security is clearly inadequate, as if trying to protect a sandcastle at high tide. The boy listens skeptically to the advice to start small. His interlocutor jokes that it's easy to give advice when it's not your grandson. Grandpa shows up at the party, causing a mixture of joy and bewilderment. The lack of warning about the visit is reminiscent of a surprise from an unsolicited advertising letter. Jean Ho agrees to a brief conversation, though his attention has already turned to the guests. The invitation sounds like a reminder of urgent matters. The mentor notes with approval that the student has adopted the mannerisms of the head of the school. The compliment sounds like a recognition of growth, but with a touch of irony. Lack of congratulations on a birthday causes annoyance. The situation is like a cake without candles. Everything seems to be there, but there is no celebration. The head of school is reported separately, emphasizing her status. It's like getting a VIP pass at your own party. Family disagreements are discussed with light sarcasm. The father does not seem to give up trying to influence, like an annoying alarm clock. Watching the tired look on the head of school's face, its clear management is like running an obstacle course in a penguin suit. A young man is surprised to see a gift that turns out to be not a check, but something more meaningful. The situation is like opening a gift that turned out to be something other than what was expected. The boy is amazed to learn that the gift is a deed to the land around the school. Such an acquisition causes a mixture of joy and slight shock. The mentor explains that the land is 5 times the school's current holdings. It can be used for expansion and pasture, making the gift strategically important. A man with a slight smile suggests trying something new. His words sound like an invitation to experiment, which may bring unexpected results. Guy reassures us that fighting is not just about strength. His words remind us that strategy and skill are more important than brute strength. Grandpa proudly notes that his grandson can handle even a few elders. His request to stay the night sounds like a desire to extend their time together. A young man asks, with a slight irony, which of the two will be chosen. The situation resembles a choice between 2 equally attractive options. Guy is surprised to learn that the relationship between the families is not what he assumed it would be. His words sound like a reminder of the complexities of family ties. Jin-ho receives guests until late in the evening, showing hospitality. His efforts are like trying to keep his balance on a tightrope. The young man is surprised to learn of the relocation plans. Preparations for the transportation of goods from Hubei to Azanin and Gairan raise questions about the scope of the operation. The boy decides to stay in Wangweiwen for a while. This decision helps him to better understand local traditions and strengthen ties with the community. A young man discusses the cold and the strength needed to overcome it with a touch of irony. The conversation about the wall adds a touch of philosophical humor. The mentor notes with a smile that the art is only accessible to a select few. This emphasizes the importance of perseverance and patience in achieving mastery. Guy is surprised to notice that the newcomers look older than those who could not make it over the Wailing Wall. This observation raises questions about their experience and motivation. The young man respectfully mentions that Mrs. Suk Mwanghan sent them. This emphasizes her influence and authority in their circle. The mentor explains with slight irony that envoys must arrive to support the express shipment. This emphasizes the importance of preparation and planning. The guy hesitantly discusses the possibility of overcoming the wall. The situation requires not only strength but also strategy, which makes it even more interesting. A young man happily welcomes new guests. This event marks the beginning of a new phase full of opportunities and challenges. The young man offers the new arrivals a rest before they begin their training. His offer sounds like caring for those who have just arrived despite their age. The guy is eager to start training to get over the wall faster. His determination is reminiscent of an athlete ready for a marathon. The mentor explains that the crash course contains nothing complicated. The main thing is to fight one-on-one to attain enlightenment. The woman hesitantly asks if a one-on-one battle will really help overcome the wall. His question sounds like a challenge requiring proof. The girl discusses with surprise the possibility of overcoming the wall with a single blow. His words sound like doubts about the effectiveness of such an approach. The woman observes with a slight irony that even those who have barely made it can overcome the wall. His words add a touch of humor to a serious conversation. Guy enthusiastically agrees that the success of the course will cause quite a furor. His confidence sounds like a foretaste of the victories to come. The woman proudly declares that his father will be the first to scale the wall. His words emphasize family ambition and tradition. The guy announces that he will be holding one-on-one bouts. His decision sounds like a challenge that will help each participant to unlock his or her potential. The young man respectfully yields the right of first move to the older man. His gesture emphasizes the importance of tradition and respect for elders. The boy proudly declares that the senior should be the first to overcome the wall. His words sound like an acknowledgement of years of experience and training. The mentor relies on the head of the school with confidence. His archetype radiates persistence, which adds a touch of seriousness to the atmosphere. The young man proposes to start the duel by conceding the first move. His decision sounds like a challenge that will help to unlock the potential of both participants. The master states that he will not refuse help regardless of age. His determination emphasizes his willingness to learn and grow. The man watches in amazement at the unusual technique, which requires neither sword nor energy. With a slight smile, the mentor demonstrates a skill that does not require the use of a sword. His actions look like art perfected to perfection. The elder notes with amazement that everything happened without the use of the sword or its energy. This looks like a challenge to all the usual ideas about martial arts. The old man ironically discusses that things can end on a meaningless note. His words sound like a reminder of the importance of purpose and meaning in any endeavor. The man is surprised to realize that he has used up all his remaining energy. His condition resembles a battery that has suddenly died at the most inopportune moment. The guy notes with approval that the student did a great job. His praise sounds like recognition of effort and progress. The guy notes with a slight irony that risky actions can lead to unexpected results. His words sound like a reminder of the importance of caution. The young man asks in surprise if his brother is ready for tomorrow's test. His question sounds like a challenge that requires an immediate response. The boy is surprised to notice that his brother has lost consciousness. His gaze drifts behind the wall where something unexpected is hiding. The old man asks with slight irony to wait as he has just found a lead. He wants to get back into the fight. The young man agrees with determination to wait. His words sound like readiness for a new phase that will begin right now. The mentor watches in amazement at what is happening. His expression indicates that the situation has gone beyond what was expected. The guy notes with amazement that there is something incredible behind the look. His words sound like a revelation that changes the whole idea of what is happening. The young man describes a state of being aware only of the opponent and oneself. This sounds like the highest form of concentration in combat. The mentor explains with a smile that people call it the egoless state. His words sound like a reminder of the importance of humility and concentration. The young man reflects on the fact that even in a special state, not everyone is able to overcome the wall. For this, it is necessary to find a key moment that allows one to go beyond the limits of ordinary perception. The guy discusses with interest what the technique will look like in practice. His words sound like a reminder of the importance of pushing your opponent to the limit. The mentor explains that you need to help your opponent see a glimpse of skill, if only for a moment. This sounds like the key to a real breakthrough. The young man notices with delight that his brother has made a breakthrough. His reaction is reminiscent of a fan seeing a goal scored in the last minute of a match. The guy smilingly congratulates and offers to make sure of success himself. His words sound like an invitation to a new stage of the test. The old man excitedly announces his breakthrough. His words sound like recognition of a long-awaited success that was made possible by support. The girl remarks with slight irony that overcoming the wall of sorrow will bring many troubles. His words sound like a reminder of the consequences of high-profile accomplishments. The woman smilingly suggests asking Mr. Guan for help. His words sound like a joke, but with a hint of real possibility. The guy with a slight smile asks to wait for a while. His request sounds like an attempt to keep calm in a tense situation. The mentor announces tiredly that the training is enough for today. His words sound like a concern for health and the balance between workload and rest. The nurse notes sympathetically that Mrs. Aaron is training hard. Her words sound like an acknowledgement of her efforts and resilience. The guy asks why he wasn't told about the visit. His question sounds like a joke, but with a hint of the importance of planning. The young man reminds him that a visit without approval requires Mr. Guan's permission. The guy discusses peace and tranquility with a smile. Our protagonist warns him that if he draws his sword, the young man is surprised to note that his interlocutor has changed since their last meeting. The young man is surprised to note that his interlocutor has changed since the last time they met. The guy notices with slight irony that his interlocutor has become more than just a master. This sounds like a hint about the importance of respect, especially when visiting. The young man responds to the disrespectful tone with defiance. The speech becomes a reminder of the boundaries of their intimacy. The guy reacts with surprise to the insolence of the interlocutor. The reaction looks like confusion before an unexpected turn of events. The young man asks in amazement what is going on. The question reflects an attempt to make sense of the interlocutor's strange actions. The guy hesitantly discusses whether linking up with Seoktajang would help in the current situation. The conversation turns into a challenge that requires an answer. The young man notes with a slight irony that even the loss of an arm or a leg will not be the end. The thought emphasizes resilience in the face of hardship. The boy is surprised to discuss having two heirs. The theme reveals an attempt to make sense of a complex family dynamic. The young man respectfully agrees that the guy is right. The response serves as an acknowledgement of the exceptionality of the situation. The young man regretfully admits that the conflict may sideline him in the battle for the inheritance. The apology seems like an attempt to preserve his position. The guy threateningly warns that this is the last warning. The phrase emphasizes the seriousness of the moment. The young man anxiously discusses what will happen if the master leaves. Thinking about it paints a picture of the worst-case scenario. The guy asks indignantly if it is worth it to go back and beg for forgiveness. The question becomes a call to decisive action. The young man orders with determination to gather the best warriors and train the guards. The order marks the beginning of extensive preparations. The guy reminds with seriousness that defeat will mean the end. The warning sounds like the final signal before the battle. The young man announces with determination that he wants to see Mr. Panu. The order to send all uninvited guests back heralds a major change. The guy notices with indignation that he is being treated like an ordinary person. The replica emphasizes his status and importance. The young man asks in surprise what is going on. The tone betrays confusion at the chaotic situation. The guy asks with irritation who dared to treat the guests so rudely. The question demands an immediate explanation. The young man offers to show what he wants to see with interest. The offer opens a new phase of the ordeal. The guy tiredly declares that enough is enough and orders them to leave. The command hints at the limits of what is possible even for warriors. The young man explains with determination that he needs to overcome the wall to earn money to treat his mother. The story reveals the depth of his struggle. The guy ironically remarks that he'd rather spend the money on his mother's treatment than come here. The thought emphasizes priorities. The young man confidently states that even if he is telling the truth, it does not make him a fool. The phrase presents a challenge that demands respect. The young man notices with annoyance that just after getting rid of some guests, others immediately appear. The decision not to waste any more time reflects a desire for peace. The boy confidently declares that he has come on an errand. The speech emphasizes the importance of the mission despite his refusal to teach martial arts. A young man discusses Sichuan province with a slight irony. The conversation becomes an attempt to understand local traditions. The girl is surprised to note that in Sichuan everyone wears black. The observation highlights cultural differences. The young man remarks with indifference that he has no particular interest in new places. The replica gives away the habit of stability. Guy notes with a smile that the homeowner brought them here so the family could enjoy the views. The remark emphasizes the value of family vacations. The young man asks with interest if this is really a Tang village. The question reflects a desire to understand local connections. Guy respectfully greets Mrs. McGowan and the other guests. The greeting marks the beginning of the formal meeting. A young man with a smile offers to escort guests to the business lounge. The offer sets the tone for a new stage of the meeting. The young man respectfully announces that this is an order from the head of the house. The statement emphasizes the importance of observing traditions. The guy declares with determination that the host has told him to arrange everything at the highest level. The speech foreshadows extensive preparations for the reception of guests. The young man discusses with slight irony how the guests have been trying to piss him off from the start. The conversation betrays a desire to remain calm. The guy is surprised to admit that he doesn't know who is in front of him, but welcomes the guest. The replica opens a dialogue that requires a response. The young man asks with slight concern if something is wrong. The question expresses concern for the other person. The boy is surprised to notice that he feels strange. The remark becomes an attempt to make sense of the unusual condition. The young man notes with interest that the head of the Tang family from Sichuan has arrived with something interesting. The replica heralds a new phase of the meeting.